It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. We have such an exciting panel. Smart people all. Mike Elgan is here. Emily Forlini, our attorney at law, Cathy Gellis. Of course, one of the biggest topics of the day, the New Jersey drone mystery. We'll delve into that. Emily lives in New Jersey. She has quite a few thoughts. We'll also talk about Infowars. Apparently, The Onion isn't going to get them. And the TikTok ban. What are the First Amendment implications? All that and more coming up next on a great TWiT.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 1010, recorded Sunday, December 15th, 2024, the densest state in the U.S. It's time for TWiT, This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. And I've got a great, as always, I've got a great panel assembled for you. Mike Elgan's visiting us from Oaxaca, Mexico. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Leo. Thank you for having me on.
I know exactly where he is because I've stayed in that house, and it's a wonderful place. And you're surrounded by great food, and just you walk out the door, and half a block away, there's a nice little taco place, and it's just incredible.
Yes,
incredible. Great to see you, Mike.
Great to see you too.
Mike has his own newsletter now, machinesociety.ai, if you're interested. That's where you write about the machine society that we all live in.
It's cyberpunk nonfiction.
I love it.
That's the world we live in.
I love it. He also still writes for many publications. You'll see his byline. And the reason he's in Oaxaca, he and his wife Amira do wonderful gastro-nomad trips to all over the world. And you just did one, I know, in Oaxaca. The gastronomad.net is the website, and the experiences. You're going to go to Sicily next, Prosecco and Venice, Morocco, El Salvador, and back to Mexico. This is Barcelona, some of my favorite places in the world. Oh,
they're the tastiest places we've ever found.
The tastiest places in the world.
Yeah. We like food.
Everywhere has good food, though.
That's true.
Except Norway. Everywhere but Norway.
Wow.
And Iceland.
Fights right out of the gate.
Annoying people right from the start. That was Emily Forlini mocking me. Nay Drybelbus, so it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. Coming at you live from New Jersey. I'm inside a drone. I'm flying the drones.
Hey, I want to ask you about that in a second, but first let's say hi also to Cathy Gellis, who is joining us. She writes for Tech Dirt. You have a lot of Gatorade there, Cathy. Old Cathy Gellis. Look at that.
I do.
You ready?
There was a sale. So.
Hydration, very important, especially when you live on a houseboat.
Right. Yes. I too was also mocking you for the Norway quote. So just to be clear.
Well, I don't know. It's just me personally, but there's only so much pickled herring I can eat. And
I like pickled herring.
Oh,
I've never found that threshold amount of too much pickled herring.
So Emily, have you seen the drones?
I have not. I did write a piece about it for PC Mag, and I was hoping to go out and take a good picture, but you never know where they're going to be. And they haven't been over my house, but I am the county right next to the main county where they were seen. So Morris County is where the whole thing kind of started, and now it's up and down the East Coast, but it's like 20 minutes from me. I haven't seen anything, but I would love to.
So there is a certain kind of Witches of Salem element to this.
Yeah.
Which is there probably was something really going on over New Jersey. I'll ask you, Emily, but I think also now I've seen drones. Everybody's seeing them because any light in the sky, whether it's a helicopter, an airplane, or a drone or whatever, you go, oh, there's the drones.
Yeah, and probably people are taking them out and now adding to the mix and, just complicating it, I bet, because now you want to get pictures of them. And
I'm tempted to fly my drone at night now. That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe put some Christmas lights on.
Yeah. My brother said he saw one.
Yeah.
My brother saw one.
Yeah.
He just texted the group chat, drone, I see a drone. That's it.
So they're UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? The military is getting into it. The president-elect is going to look into it. What do we have any idea? What the military denies any knowledge of it, right?
Yeah, the military is denying it, and I saw that. Do you see Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security secretary? He did an interview, and he totally squashed it and was like, "Oh, they're planes." And I thought it was a little suspicious how much he discredited it.
It's just a plane. Don't get. It's just a plane.
Yeah. So what I talked about in that article,
like a plane. I got to be honest with you. The one I saw, I'm pretty sure was a helicopter.
Yeah,
but it had 3 lights. Is
You
that
saw
always
one.
the case? Yeah, I saw one over my house in Petaluma, California. They're everywhere.
yeah.
Although,
But as I
and
said,
then-
it's a certain amount of hysteria that's
Larry
spreads.
Hogan was basically pointing, there's lights in the sky, and people said, that's Orion. Like,
Yeah.
these are the
They
stars that have been
identified
over
the
your
actual
over
stars.
your head for your
No.
entire
3
life.
stars in a row, the belt of Orion.
Yeah. I'm just seeing, like, there's a headline on NBC News. Chuck Schumer requests drone detection system for New York, New Jersey as mysterious devices litter the skies. New York Governor Kathy Hochul urged federal legislators to pass a law that would grant states more authority
Oh,
to deal with
God.
drones directly.
yeah. So that's the issue.
Yeah. Okay.
That the states they don't have authority to shoot them down, so they need to convince the
Don't
federal.
shoot them down.
Why wouldn't you shoot it down over the ocean?
What if it's a plane? What if it's a passenger jet?
Okay, you have
There's
to
a
know.
reason why we may want federal preemption here, because
what if it's an F? Yeah, what if it's
I'm
an F toll?
100% pro shoot it
Right?
down. Shoot that thing down
What
over
if
the
it's an
ocean.
F toll? We're entering the era of F tolls. They
Shoot it
sort of-
down. They need to
What's
get a
an F
permit.
toll?
There's an FAA restriction. You
don't know-
cannot be flying.
from the ground. You can't tell if they have a permit or not. Like, we don't know what's going on.
Well, the
Like-
guy in New Jersey said that the Coast Guard told him that they had like 13 following a Coast Guard ship. So that's when he was like, if they're
Oh.
over the ocean, we could shoot it down.
Yeah.
but then so could the Coast Guard.
But don't you guys think we need to nip this in the bud? And like, how else are you going to do it?
Nip what in the bud? We don't
Yeah.
even know what it is. So why
Yeah,
are you nipping
like-
it in the bud?
Okay, this
We
is
don't
where
even know
maybe
it has
I'm in
a
New
bud.
Jersey, and I do think like people deserve answers.
You do.
Well-
You do say in your piece on PC Magazine, it's giving off kind of a Chinese spy balloon vibe,
and,
right?
And by the way, we're being very cautious. Like, I haven't written more pieces than this one because we're not
Yeah.
trying to add to hysteria, and I'm
Right.
not trying to add to hysteria right now. There's an important kind of like reporting ethics in this situation because you don't know what it is. But I still think you should shoot it down like off the record. Like, I wouldn't write that in an article.
What does your drone expert think? Is it an actual consumer drone?
No. So
No.
that's one of the things we talk about in this is that if they are very large, it seems like they're not something you couldn't buy it at Best Buy. And he talks about how.
Well, how do we
lar-
know if they're large?
I think they're flying relatively low to the ground, and so people can see like with their eyes.
How do we know if they're flying low to the ground? This is
Yeah.
the thing.
This is
Okay.
tricky at night.
People are
Your eye
hearing
fools
it.
you.
People are hearing it.
So the thing is, you have to understand that when they are flying low to the ground, people are seeing like 5 or 6 or 7 different things. They're seeing stars. They're seeing consumer drones. They're seeing airplanes. They're seeing helicopters. They're seeing lots of different things. And now
Starlink
that
satellites.
everybody's got aliens in their head, and they look. I know you've seen that video where the woman is watering her lawn and she sees a rainbow because the sun is shining through her lawn. It's like, what are they putting in the water? The government's putting something in the water to make
Oh,
it do.
jeez.
Because she started with the conspiracy thinking, and then she looked at the world, and the same thing happened with Area 51. Area 51 is an experimental aircraft facility. That's what it does. It flies things that fly that nobody's ever seen before. So yes, people saw things they never saw before flying around Area 51. It's really ridiculous. Meanwhile, there almost certainly is Chinese or Russian drones that are highly capable and very fast buzzing military aircraft, right? And spying through that realm. What I don't understand is why we don't
Why
have...
New Jersey?
Well, but
Seems
it's not
a long
just
way
There's
to
a
go.
military
If you're-
base.
It's been happening
Yeah,
in
but
San
if you're
Diego
from
and a
Russia
bunch of
and
other...
China, would you fly to New Jersey to
There's-
harass? You could just go to Germany, or I mean, it seems like a long
There's a
way
lot
to go.
of there's a military base near where they kind of started.
Wherever there's
Maybe
military
they
bases
started
in the
from
UK,
the military base.
It's a global phenomenon. This is not New Jersey. It's
it's
like
global.
Now the hysteria is New Jersey, but they're buzzing air bases in Europe. They're buzzing in San Diego and in
maybe
New
they are
York and
Russian.
Virginia.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, they have this capability. It's a great technology for spying because if you shoot it down, they can be like, well, it wasn't ours, you know?
Right. I mean, I think there's a balance. Like, you don't want to be controversial, but also I watched this hearing on drones because the New Jersey thing is starting all this conversation. And it really does sound like our country is not equipped to handle drones, like to figure out what they are, to stop them from coming over. Like the fact that we can't just diagnose it and, like I said, nip this whole thing in the bud is actually because our technology and our strategy towards drones is not good enough. And from the hearing I watched, everyone in government agreed that that's the case. It's just like a question of how to handle it. So I don't think we should dismiss it just because we don't have the technology to figure it out.
Why, if you're a Russian spy drone, do you run bright lights in a triangle formation?
I agree, but just we should be able to figure it out. And that's what everyone is saying.
I think there's two things. One is, okay, drones are a technology that exists that may or may not pose various vectors of trouble for us, and we seem ill-equipped both technically and from a policy standpoint to be able to deal with it. Okay, I think we're all on board with that. But I think in terms of leaping to the conclusion that the thing to do when you see the lights in the sky is to shoot it, I don't think we're at that point. I mean, I don't
think it's a leap. I think like this has been going on for a month and is like, people deserve answers. It's scary if something is flying over your house every night. It's a failure of government that they can't help you.
But so that's a good question. Are there people who are every night drones are going over their house?
They see them all the time in their community.
1, 2, 100, a group of them? What is it that they're seeing?
It seems to be anywhere from 1 to like 4.
And they hover or they just go over?
They seem to do weird, different patterns, but those people are scared and they have families and they're like, what is going on with my house? And I think that they deserve to have like any answer, and it's ridiculous that they don't.
But I think what we're saying is this is literally shoot first, ask questions later.
Yes,
like, let's ask the question first.
Who's saying shoot? I'm saying shoot one down over the ocean. Is that what you're responding to? No one's saying shoot it down.
Okay. Well, that's
besides me, but one over the ocean.
Well, the one problem is like, is that one of the
to see what it is? Is that what you're saying, Emily? So
just recover. That's what we did with the spy balloon. Just recover it and see what it is.
We did that.
I mean, as a methodological remove one, extract a sample, that may make sense. And maybe extracting a sample involves shooting it over the ocean. But I think one of the problems is there's so much hysteria and there's so many lights of so many things. How do you actually know that you've extracted one of the sample that we're concerned about? Because you may have just gotten somebody's hobby.
I also wonder,
but I mean, you act like shooting something down is like, so dramatic. It's like we're sending bombs at the push of a button across the world.
It depends what you're shooting down. If you're shooting down some people in a helicopter, that is dramatic.
Yeah.
I don't think people have a good ability to distinguish between what's alien lights, drone lights, helicopter lights, airplane lights.
Right. Well, of course it would be
I don't think people are very good at making that distinction. And I don't want people to start shooting at those just in case it is civilian aircraft or even military aircraft. Now, wouldn't we be able to monitor radio transmissions around these drones?
It seems like we can't do anything.
There may not be. I mean, the state of the art in military drones is that they're AI based. There's an Australian company that
they're silent. They're autonomous.
They don't use GPS and they don't need a connection with the operator. They can be basically they can program AI to say go fly over this ship or this air base, take lots of high res video and fly back. And it's like no big deal. There's no there in terms of interrupting a radio signal. Australia, interestingly, has developed a methodology for drones, bigger drones, like the kind that go great distances. They're more like aircraft, to navigate by the stars of all things, because Russia and North Korea right now are jamming airspaces to defeat drones that do rely on the GPS and other signals. So,
interesting.
Yeah, so that's the state of the art. But I think it's very likely that many of these drones, or most of these drones, are consumer drones. These are DJI drones. There's more than 1 million of them. in the United States. 850,000 of them are registered with the government. There's so many of them, and people are flying
I
them
have
around.
2 in my bottom drawer.
And they're getting more capable at flying at night. So people are flying them at night. And so, again, if Russia is flying drones with lights, it's probably the point of that is to freak everybody out and to understand that Russia is flying drones over American airspace, right? So otherwise it wouldn't have lights. What's the point? So I just think, we do need to get on, the Pentagon, the DARPA does need to develop technology to be able to track a drone visually so that you have a telescope that automatically tracks what's in the sky no matter where it goes or how fast it goes. And so we can look at it and see what it is before we shoot it down.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such an unsatisfying answer that they're just saying, nah, it's nothing. That's not sufficient.
I think the most likely scenario is it's some sort of military vehicle.
Right.
That's why it's being seen near military bases. I saw one person say that we are developing the capability to detect radiation from atomic weapons, and that we're testing these drones to we would potentially be using in a scenario where there was an atomic bomb somewhere and we could triangulate it.
The military base said it's not theirs, but we don't know.
Yeah, but isn't that what they would say?
Right.
What drones? What do we? Yeah. I mean, they should probably. What they should do is they should place a call to somebody and say, "Dudes, how do we get out of this? Because we don't want anybody to know what we're doing, but we don't want people to start shooting at them, and we don't want people to freak out. What would be the next step? How would you do that? You'd have the Pentagon spokesperson come on and say, "What? Those are ours? No." Nothing. If there's nothing to see here, is what they would say. So
here's what you need to know. Here's what you, the audience, needs to know. We just entered over the last couple of years the world of drone warfare. Drones are the most important development in warfare
because of Ukraine.
It's the chariot, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Ukraine itself is like using 1 million drones a month, and they're kamikaze drones. We all remember the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt. His company makes $400 kamikaze drones that fly using AI and drop bombs on things. That's what he does for a living. There's many companies like that.
It's cheap.
And he's working, by the way, with Palmer Luckey's Anduril.
Exactly.
To provide artificial intelligence to these drones.
So as a background, it's important to know that the U.S. military and all the companies that supply the U.S. military are scrambling to develop and test military drones, and they're not going to admit that that's what they're doing or that's in the sky. They're not going to do any of that stuff. So that's one thing that's happening.
That's what's happening.
And also consumer drones and planes and stars and all the rest.
Yeah. Once there was a panic, I think a lot of kind of kids are sending their drones up. But really, it's military testing.
If that's what's happening, they're actively lying to the American public.
Yes,
of course they are.
And they're doing smoke and mirrors because the FAA issued a no flight. You can't fly over here, which suggests the FAA didn't know about it. So then, if that's what
why would they tell the FAA? That's a sure way.
That may be the test, is to see if they can fly undetected. Right? That may be the test.
Well, they dramatically failed F on that test. Like everyone saw it.
They probably shouldn't have put bright lights on them. That might have been a mistake.
Usually you do that to comply with the FAA. They could have flown without lights.
The lights are the biggest puzzle. Yeah, to me, that's the biggest puzzle.
But again, I doubt that all of them had the same lights, right? So people are seeing all kinds of different things. Sometimes people are seeing a light, right? And it's like, Jupiter.
A single light.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it, and it's not like it looks like it could just be atmospheric friction.
There is no it. That's the problem. There's no one thing.
This is a lot of things. Like I'm looking at a picture of something where something is in the atmosphere, but it looks like
I saw somebody post the picture of the Starlink satellites in a line, which of course we know about, and saying, "Oh my God, it's happening."
Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm worried about now that it's a national story. It's different. Like when it was showing up on my TikTok feed and my social feed, because I'm in New Jersey, the tone of the posts were different. It was kind of like, "Whoa, that's actually really weird."
What's going on, man?
Like there were a lot of them, and it was kind of like, "This is really weird. Like, should I be writing about this?" And now it's national. Now everyone's trying to get their 2 cents on it, and they're trying to maybe put up their own drones. And now it's like they're definitely not going to get any answers because now it's turning into like a full-blown conspiracy conspiracy.
But these things happen all the time. There was a thing in I think the 90s or the 80s or something where everybody was seeing leprechauns, and because like everybody went outside at night with flashlights trying to see leprechauns, and every cat and raccoon looked like a leprechaun to everybody. Like that kind of stuff pops up. Everybody's like looking for something specific, and when they see something, their mind applies the thing that they were freaking out about.
Was the military testing lethal leprechauns?
They were, in fact, they were. They discontinued the program because they just cost too much gold. So many pots
They
of
put them
gold.
in a basement. Now the leprechauns are flying the drones.
Exactly, right.
Got it. That's it.
I mean, I think maybe it solves a number of policy problems if we sort of figure out how society could have a little bit more interest in engaging with evidence-based policymaking, and like, let's understand things. Let's think about things and not just sort of react with projection of our stories or narratives that we either think would suit us or not suit us or something like that. And this does not seem like a story where evidence is really key here. And I think it would do us some favors in multiple areas if we had.
That's why I'm saying shoot it down and get some evidence. But what would you do if there was one of these flying over your house every night? Wouldn't you say, this is weird? They're just normal people.
I would do what everybody else is doing. They're getting their own drones and flying up there and see if they can see it. And now everybody, this is like, you know what I mean? It's
that's illegal with the FAA restrictions.
Of course,
It's also illegal to shoot them down, by the way. Don't shoot at them.
I'm suggesting the military should shoot down. I'm not saying the average person. That'd be crazy.
I know, but you got to be careful these days.
But do you imagine even for a second, nobody is doing that?
Okay, but I'm saying you're going 2 steps ahead. I'm saying take it down to base level. You're an average citizen. You're in your house. This is not a national news story. And there's weird stuff flying over your house and your family. What do you do?
It's only weird because we don't know what it is. But yeah, you don't do anything.
I think you're not. It's like there's not enough empathy for people who are experiencing this, and it's real to them.
I'm also not quite sure what this is, because there seems to be so many things. I mean, if my neighbor's flying drones over my house, that's going to be really annoying. I might want to call some authorities because it seems like they shouldn't be doing that because it's really annoying. But if it's something else and it's bigger or brighter or higher or farther, then am I being affected?
Well, it's freaky. And then what do? You talk to your local government, your local representative, and now it's bubbled up, and that's where it's at. And now the New Jersey officials are trying to get support because they don't have the power to answer the question. So,
but Emily, just a quick thing. Empathy for what? Who has been injured? What property has been damaged? Nothing has happened. People look at the vapors from jets in the sky and they think the government is poisoning everybody with chemtrails. Right?
True,
There's no need to be like to support that kind of paranoia. Yet the people are looking up in the sky, which they normally don't do, and they're noticing that there's satellites and stars and things flying around, and it's like, okay, stop doing that. And until a single person has gotten so much as a rash from this, nobody's in danger.
That's not how modern warfare works. Like, the reason that drones are scary is because they can drop things on your house. That's why there are restrictions of flying them over state. Yeah, but there are restrictions about flying them over stadiums and things because they pose a threat. So everyone agrees they pose a threat. So I don't think it's ridiculous that if they're over your house, you might be like, what is this? And is this a threat to me?
Well, they do pose a threat and they don't pose a threat. Lots of drones fly and don't drop anything at all.
It's a tricky issue.
But I think what Mike is saying is, like, has it actually done something that's caused an injury? Or are we just so worried that it might cause an injury? And I think you're saying that the possibility that one theoretically could is sending us around the bend. And Mike is kind of like, we probably shouldn't go around the bend unless it's actually causing an actual problem and that the threat of the danger is vastly more palpable.
There seems to be a trend lately of people worried about what might happen. Like, for everything. Like, well, what could happen? What could happen if TikTok was used by Chinese to steal our laundry? What could happen? And that strikes me as a populace that is a little jumpy. And I understand why people are jumpy, but
I think until you see it with your own eyes and experience it yourself,
well, it's creepy.
There's a lot of peace of mind in writing something off, but if it's happening to people, and like I see, newscasters, they go out, they say, wow, I saw it myself, that was crazy. So It's so lovely to write something off, but I'm just saying that this is affecting people,
But
and
it
it's scary.
didn't happen to them. Nothing happened.
Remember the
to people. They
Chinese spy
saw
balloons?
something and-
What happened from that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's also what are we writing off? It doesn't seem like there's some confusion about what are we writing on that this doesn't seem like a very tangible. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
our airspace there's free reign in our airspace. We've now had an issue that's popped up. There's something in the airspace, and we do not have a way to answer that question. And that's highlighting, okay, whether or not you care about these people.
Who would be
you don't
the
care about these people in New
authorities?
Jersey. That's
I
on
don't care about them. They need to understand that those things were flying before, but they didn't look up because there was no news story about all the stuff.
So we found an issue.
Who would be the appropriate authorities? The FAA?
Well, it's gone to the local officials. So the New Jersey governor is on it. The Morris County
that's encouraging.
The local FBI. And now it's up to the Department of Homeland Security, National FBI.
Yeah,
so the highest levels of government are trying to handle it. And what we've found out is that they can't handle it. And if New Jersey aside, Sopranos aside, and everything that comes with saying New Jersey, our country is not prepared for drones. And that is an issue in the modern age. And that is, I guess, what we've learned from this situation.
I mean, that may be true as it's worth workshopping the mites, but we're trying to workshop the mites. Well, we really should have very clear head as we approach what are the possibilities. And our heads are not very clear right now because there's a lot of panic and paranoia.
I did not have this on the agenda for the show at all.
I would just like to state for the record, because I feel like I'm being accused of indifference to New Jersey. I am from New Jersey, and my dad is still there.
As am I.
Yes. So Team New Jersey, no, I mean, of all the states that, I'm going to care about, that is high on my list of states that I will care about. So,
I think we need to get Space Force involved.
And
if you have a Space Force...
They must have something. They need something to do. So the as in California, I would point out that there's very well documented cases of very strange drone activity around military bases in California.
Oh, really?
In the last 2 years, that very well documented with gazillions of reports, and people have interviewed everybody. It didn't quite become a mass hysteria kind of thing, but it happened. And it's happened in other places too, and it's happened in Europe as well. And there's lots of stories. And so people need to understand there's a lot of drones flying around. Some are military, most are consumer drones. There's 1 million consumer drones out there. And people are testing EVTOLs, which this coming year is going to be the first year where there are going to be commercial EVTOL flights, probably starting in Dubai. And then the year after that, it's going to become a banality. You're going to call it up with your Uber.
Electronic vertical takeoff and landing. So these are probably mostly.
They do need a new name. They need a new name. Yeah, they do right now. It's very confusing.
EVTOL. It's an EVTOL.
We'll get used to it. But I agree with Emily. If we're going to shoot one down, we should do it quick, because pretty soon these things are going to be flying around, and there's going to be 4 people inside. So that's going to be an interesting.
Yeah, don't shoot them down if there's people in them. I think that's a good. Yeah. That's probably good.
Yeah. There's also another thing to worry about is
I stand on my case for the record.
Yeah,
Emily is lobbying hard for the military to take these drones out.
Yeah, I would demonstrate my empathy for people in New Jersey who are really, really worried that by saying stop worrying, it's probably nothing. It really is probably nothing. So please don't worry.
Hopefully
they'll figure it out.
I think the government could also do people a solid by publishing high quality pictures of it and being like, any level of clarity would show respect to the people of the country who are paying taxes to the military, to the government, electing these officials. Like, any level of respect to help clarify the situation would be much appreciated, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. And
can you file a Freedom of Information Act request for those pictures?
FOIA? Maybe I should.
Yeah. File a FOIA.
I tried to take them. I talked to PC Mag. I identified equipment. I posted on Reddit, where can I see drones at night? And a lot of people responded where they're seeing them, and they're seeing them in the same place every night. But then when the weather's bad, you can't see them as well. And I don't know. So yeah, I just think the lack of seriousness that they're engaging with this issue is creating more conspiracy theories, and just the whole situation's kind of a disaster.
So you're the journalist to own this story. Seriously.
Yeah. This is yours.
Yeah.
I kind of had a feeling it was mine. I think it's mine.
Yeah.
FOIA is a good request or a good note.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
let's
write
get
that
to the bottom
down.
of this.
I've always wanted to file a FOIA.
Yeah.
Here is from Fox News. Actual footage. It's blank now. Hold
No,
on.
it's all like cell phone cameras and blurry stuff, and
Yeah.
it's not none of it's sufficient.
I thought one of the news crews had its own cameras out there. That's certainly going to happen. You know, the only thing if I would say is Florida, you're letting New Jersey take all the story here. You got to get out there and start looking for drones in the sky in Florida, and then we'll have something.
Yeah.
I feel like
Cast of
Florida's missing.
characters in New Jersey are like, we got to get back in the spotlight.
I think that's what it is, honestly.
Jersey Shore hasn't been on air for a long time.
They're letting Florida man eat our lunch.
Yeah.
We need to get out here
Yeah.
and find something.
Yeah. I mean, these drones are flying over very wealthy areas. I don't know if people know, but there's a huge amount of money that flows out of New York City and into New Jersey. Like, there's large homes.
That's why my family's from New Jersey.
Yeah, there's a lot of like serious people, and that they're flying over this part. It's not like the Jersey Shore. So if you're thinking it's like Snooki is taking
It's flying over
photos of drones,
Bedminster,
it
the
doesn't help.
president's golf course has.
I'm just setting the stage.
It
setting
doesn't
the
help.
stage.
I think that's what it's kind of in the back of my mind. It doesn't make the story more credible because, like,
No, it
why
doesn't.
are you going over Morristown, New Jersey? What could the Russians hope to get from that? I mean,
Money, that's what I'm saying. Actually, they're
Teaneck.
really smart because this is a very wealthy area with a military base. So I
Right?
don't
Are they
know.
going to stalk the people and rob the houses when they see them drive away? Like, what are the? I just don't see the play here. So it doesn't actually
And
seem.
I think that if you're
knows?
at the, what is it called, the Piccadilly Air Force Base, the
Picatinny Arsenal.
Picatinny Arsenal. Okay, is it an Air Force base or an arsenal?
I haven't looked into it. I emailed them to interview them, and I did not hear a response.
Let's get a
I
drone
always
up in
think
the
it's
sky and check it out
more
and
of
find
their
out.
concern. Let them worry about it, right? I mean, if you're an arsenal, it seems like you would have ways to handle this.
Well, I mean, the thing is that the consumer drones are
It's a
easily
powder
taken
depot.
down.
It's
There's
where they
lots
store
of devices to take them down. So,
It's not an Air Force base. It's where they store gunpowder and munitions.
That said predecessor. That said
okay.
predecessor.
That's the predecessor. Okay.
And
it
muskets.
used to be the Picatinny Powder Depot.
yeah, they've moved
It's
on.
also home to the U.S. Army Explosive Ordnance Disposal Technology Directorate.
Well, what if it's just the case that it is the U.S. military and the government is just lying to us? Like, then what?
Well, the CIA
the
has
first time.
has a lot of secret bases inside of airports abroad, and who knows, maybe in the U.S. as well. So you never know.
I mean, the problem is this is. I think we need to, as sane people, we need to recognize this. A false denial
yourself.
sounds exactly like a true denial, and it's sort of like, well, they've denied it, aha, but they've also denied it. Maybe because it's deniable. It's like
We need
to,
pictures. We need to see if there's a brand name on it.
interesting.
There needs to be high quality pictures.
Picatinny
we need
was
to
where
keep
the
our wits about us to like actually like not go aha too easily, and to actually be calm and measured and figure out how to
Picatinny was
tease
where
out what
the,
is evidence and what is not evidence.
where the Patriot missiles
And that's what I'm
were
proposing,
developed.
taking some pictures. Like, what type of wing format are they? What's written on them? What color are the lights? What arrangement are they in? I just feel like any level of seriousness would be so far beyond the dialogue we have now, and we're just not getting that. And people are looking to their elected officials to get that, and it's not coming, and that's a failure.
Have you seen our elected officials lately?
Here's
It's
according
a
to-
failure. It's not that these people are idiots. It's that the government is not answering their questions, and they're paying taxes, and they're looking for help, and they're not getting it. And
Well, I
that's a
think
problem.
the officials may be stoking the hysteria as opposed to actually responding calmly to the hysteria, which is not going to do anything.
I mean, all these people are going to work every day. They're taking their kids to soccer practice. They're living their lives. They're eating dinner. No one is running around. You know, there's no hysteria that's tangible. It's just like people want to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Larry Hogan discovers Orion. So, I mean,
according to CNN, the Defense Department has acknowledged that there are drones flying over Picatinny and the Naval Weapons Station.
They're
in
confirmed
Merrill.
sightings, and they're not all drones, but the
confirmed
government
by
is confirmed.
the DOD.
Yes.
Yes.
The DOD read my article. I could see in our analytics platform that the DOD read my article, and then they looked at my bio page, and I was like,
Emily, if you get any strange phone calls,
I
Now
know,
you're on
right?
some list.
If you see a drone above your house, you'll know that your article was a success.
Oh, I know. Oh, I see people in China reading my articles and stuff too. I'm on so many lists, but I was like, are they reading because they want to know what the media is putting out about it,
Yes.
or are they reading it because they want to actually figure it out?
They have no
which
idea,
is-
and they figured it. Emily Forlini has figured it out. Let's find out. If they don't have any idea,
It's interesting, and I don't think we should we shouldn't just accept that there's no answer. That's ridiculous.
There's stuff in the sky.
There's
and
an answer.
Yeah.
There might be
Agreed.
multiple answers.
Yeah. And probably multiple answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, just because the federal government denies something doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
That's normal, right?
So
You got to get a little fight in us. We can't just be like, oh, it's nothing because they say it's
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
But,
so
I think we need to get better as a country at being a little bit less fast to freak out about things. So these sightings have occurred in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Maryland, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. They've been over the Stewart International Airport in New York, air bases in the UK, like 3 air bases in the UK. Some of these are described as 6 feet in diameter. Many of these are reportedly have their lights off, which makes more sense. Spy aircraft. So this is a worldwide phenomenon, sort of, right? So it's Europe and the U.S. so far. I would be really surprised if the U.S. isn't flying things over foreign. We've been doing it since the Cold War, and so this is a bigger issue of assuming it's spy aircraft than just New Jersey. New Jersey's in the news, so I think we really do need to get to the bottom of it, and it's not just the U.S. It's also Europe as well.
I think your explanation is probably correct, Mike, which is that drone warfare is suddenly the hot topic thanks to the Ukraine-Russia war, and that militaries everywhere are working on their drone capabilities. They shouldn't be lighting them up, though. That's just making people nuts.
Well,
but I think some of it is atmospheric or reflection from other
it's all
things.
sorts of stuff.
Of course, the problem, which we haven't directly touched on, but we've touched on, is that posting something on social media that's a really sensational image at this point can make you rich because you get likes, you get followers.
Right.
And so we have a real incentive to get misinformation out there. And that does stress me out. And that almost adds to my urgency that if we're going to not regulate those technologies, if we're going to continue to pour billions of dollars into the ability for people to do this, we also have to have the ability to answer questions and stop conspiracy theories. Like
I think that's
the
probably
whole thing's
true.
a fail. So if we...
Our government communications are living in a different era.
Yeah.
Right. It's total mismatch, and it's just a lot falling through the cracks. And
And I would like to add one additional thing, which is that if you're testing a military aircraft, there's no reason not to put lights on it. I mean, you don't want lights in the final product, but like if you're testing it just to see if it will fly or whatever, you want to be able to see it in the sky for your own.
It's a pretty crowded airspace that you're putting your stuff in. Like, most of the time we tested aircraft over the desert where there was nobody. New Jersey is not really like empty
That's a good point too. You put lights on so nobody hits it.
New Jersey's the densest state in the U.S.
Yes.
Is that
in all sorts of ways? So, I'm
gonna
I
make
knew
that our
somebody
show
would.
title. I think
Remember
we
when
have
you were like,
Here we
I'm
go.
being accused of...
I'm allowed. I'm allowed. I'm a Jersey
gets
girl.
to.
I can totally throw New Jersey under the bus. It's my people.
All right. It wasn't on the agenda, but I'm glad we covered it because it is a story that people are worried about, and there is a tech angle to it. And thank you, Emily Forlini, for bringing this up and making us aware. And but please, folks, leave the shooting down to the law enforcement and the military.
I'm sorry that I accidentally incited violence.
Do not start shooting in the sky. It's dangerous for everybody. Bullets go up, but they also come down. We're going to take a break and talk about other tech news in just a little bit. But Emily, in all honesty, thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for fighting the good fight. We ought to know what this is, and gosh darn it,
If
Own
I may,
the story. Own the story.
own the story.
If I may close with a swift on security skeet, that skeet is situation. There are 65 unknown drones in the sky. Ridiculous. I need to go investigate this myself. Better send my drone. Situation. There are now 66 unknown drones.
It's
in
like
the sky.
an XKCD cartoon in real life. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Also with us, Cathy Gellis. It's great to have you. We will talk about what's going on in Supreme Court. Looks like that TikTok case is going all the way, waiting for a word from SCOTUS. Mike Elgan is also here. Always great to have you. MachineSociety.ai. This is a newsletter. We'll be right back with more in just a little bit. Our show today brought to you by Mint Mobile. I have my Mint Mobile phone. Every time I get my Mint Mobile bill and I compare it to the bill from other carriers, I think, why would anybody go anywhere else? Look, I mean, I love a great deal as much as anybody else, right? But I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. It has to be real. There's no hoops. There's no BS. So I was skeptical, I admit, when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month when you buy the 3-month plan. I checked. Turns out it really is easy to get wireless for $15 a month. I liked it so much, I re-upped and re-upped again. In fact, the truth is, the hardest thing you're going to do is spending time on hold waiting to break up with your old provider. You should, by the way, because you can bring your phone number, port your phone number over. They're required to do that. Make it your phone number a Mint Mobile phone number. You're going to save so much money. I mean, $15 a month. How much is your current cell bill? $70, $80, $90, $100 or more? To get started, to start saving, go to mintmobile.com/twit. 3-month plans are only $15 a month. And that is including the unlimited plan. $15 a month for your first 3 months. That's pretty amazing. All the Mint Mobile plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text nationwide, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can bring your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. They will send you the SIM or they'll do an eSIM, no charge. And port your phone number over, bring all your existing contacts. It couldn't be easier. They also sell phones. I bought a nice new iPhone SE from Mint Mobile for a really good price. And then I got the even better price on Mint Mobile. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile. Get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. Mint Mobile. This is absolutely the best deal out there. And I don't know why everybody isn't a Mint Mobile customer. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month for 3 months, go to mintmobile.com/twit. That's Mint Mobile, M-I-N-T, mintyfreshmobile.com/twit. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/twit. $45 upfront payment required. That's equivalent to $15 a month. It is new customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. mintmobile.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting our show, and we thank you for supporting the show by doing that address, because that way they know. Oh, yeah, they saw it on Twit. mintmobile.com/twit. Thank you, Mint Mobile. As long as we're in the silly season, Infowars, the sale to The Onion has now been overturned by the bankruptcy court.
Boo.
Boo.
I know, exactly.
Well, it's been delayed. I don't know if we know exactly. Yeah, the deal that was going to happen is not happening, but it's not quite clear what will happen next, whether it's starting over or whether things will sort of pick up somewhere along the line.
Yeah, the bankruptcy court judge, Christopher Lopez in Houston, said, okay, yes, there was a deal and The Onion won, but no, we're going to go back. He instructed the coin-appointed trustee to come up with an alternative solution. I don't know what the alternative would be. Part of the problem is that The Onion's offer had less cash in it than the offer from the other interested party, which is really just, let's be honest, a front for Infowars. And the Sandy Hook parents, remember, they won the lawsuit against Alex Jones and Infowars because he kept saying that it was a fake shooting in Sandy Hook and so forth, and won $1.4 billion judgment, forcing Alex Jones into bankruptcy, selling off his assets. And then the families talked to The Onion and said, okay, we would prefer for Infowars to go to a satire site than to First United American Companies, which is essentially a bidder affiliated with Alex Jones. We don't want to see InfoWars stay on the air. So we're willing to take less cash up front because we think this is a better owner. The total value of the Onion's bid was $7 million, including $1.75 million in cash put up by the Global Tetrahedron, the company that owns the Onion. And it's funny, some of the cash coming from the families. They essentially opted to put a portion of their earnings from a defamation judgment towards the Onion's bid. So they're sending a very clear signal. They want the Onion. First United American offered $3.5 million in cash, twice as much cash. The expert who advised the trustee said the combined bid with the families was a better choice. And initially, that's what happened. But now the bankruptcy judge says, no, he didn't like it and he's going to send it back, which sounds to me, I agree with you, Cathy. He's not saying, no, the Onion can't have it, but it sounds to me like he's putting his thumb on the scale for United First Company.
And I think there's a question of whether he's allowed to, that the trustee's choice. There were two. One, there's two things that kind of catch some attention. One is the way that the deal was put together, because there's a concession as opposed to pure cash.
Right.
But the second thing is that it was, I guess they did a sealed auction and they did it with a single bid and nobody got to go back and stuff. But it sounds like, talking to some experts, that is not unusual. That is not atypical. And that none of these things really, that the trustee didn't act in a way that prompts the second guessing. And they keep referring to something either called or akin to the business judgment rule, where you got to leave it up to the best judgment of the person running this and give them some leeway, or else they'll never be able to accomplish anything. Right. And that there's a lot of observers are like, I don't see what the trustee did that would prompt the second guessing. I mean, you want there to be second guessing if the trustee does something really terrible and, really kind of disadvantages the parties, but nobody's suggesting that. And I think a lot of observers are really kind of surprised because they don't see why there was an avenue for complaint and having complaint affect this in any way.
I think the solution is obvious. They should launch a Kickstarter. I personally would add $100, and I think
You're right. They could raise more money that way,
and just have an open auction and be the highest bidder, and there would be no controversy.
Yeah, but then who would that be that would own it? The people
Onion.
of Kickstarter.
Raise the money and give it to the Onion.
Yeah. Well,
everybody wants this.
You run into some problems, I think, with securities issues with how you finance a purchase like that, like donations to the Onion. Like yes, functionally that sounds great. I think legally that may be a hard thing to achieve, but who knows? Maybe that's next. So we'll see.
There's so many shady deals that go down in this country. I don't see why this one. I mean, it's the bar and the standards are so all over the place. But it's just a huge bummer. I mean, I would love to see this go through, and I'm so sad that it's been stalled.
Like they get the same audience, right? They have the list, right, of the audience that they would be serving. So that would just be gold. I mean, it would be so good.
I mean, I think we need more humor writing in general, and I don't think maybe the judge feels like it's a biased case or something, but it should just be considered as two neutral parties. Like, I know these parties are huge characters in themselves, like the Infowars and The Onion are just massive personalities as far as media companies, but it should just be considered neutral. And if there's any reason the judge is reacting based on the content on either side, I don't think that's fair.
Let's think of the lying sociopaths. They have to be protected.
Think of the sociopaths. Yes. Well, I think the issue with this one is Jones himself isn't happy, and Jones is also trying to sell his supplements. And then there seems to be shell companies who are like, why weren't we taken seriously? And then there's the allegations that there's shell companies that are really just him, like functionally alter egos. So it's messy. And then there's a question of whether the judge is treating everybody as neutral when maybe they shouldn't be treated as neutral, which is also a thing.
Right. Well, he's Jones. I watched a little bit of the live stream he did right after it was announced that The Onion won the bid, and he was claiming it was a deep state conspiracy to limit the free press. Of course. So that's his perspective. Yes. And so,
yeah, and I mean, what the judge and what any bankruptcy court judge should be doing is looking for the best deal that returns the most money for the creditors, the Sandy Hook families. Should he consider the Sandy Hook family's interest, expressed interest? I don't know. There was a 2-day hearing, and he was fairly irate that it was not a transparent bidding process, whatever that means.
Right.
He didn't like the sealed bid, it sounds like, but I'm not entirely sure. And I'm not a bankruptcy expert, but from the commentary I was reading, people seem to think that there was no reason that was not a reasonable way to go forward.
Right. Because of this hearing, we got the opportunity to hear from lawyers for X.com, Elon Musk's Twitter replacement, saying they can't sell the X accounts owned by Alex Jones and Infowars because X owns them. Which I think for many of us was just a reminder that you do not own your social media accounts. The social media company who runs the platform seems at least to think they own the accounts, and certainly probably do. I don't know. What do you think, Cathy? Does X own Alex Jones' former Twitter account?
So it's one of these things where the motivations behind X's choices may be suspect, but they may be right anyway. I think any social media platform is reasonably concerned that there could be construed like a property right in anything that they're offering.
Right.
And I think their concern with the way the bankruptcy was processing that was that it was being treated as an asset that was that in some ways had a property right context to it.
So we have a TWiT account on X.com, and I own the trademark to TWiT. But is it their assertion that if I decided, I don't know, to sell the TWiT account that I couldn't? This happens all the time. Alex Wilhelm bought @Alex back in the day.
I think a couple things are happening. One is, you'd have to look at the terms of service, but the terms of service generally seem assignable, that the contract is assignable so that if you started the account and you wanted to sell your media empire to somebody else, that whoever bought it, who obviously is interested in continuing the media empire, would want all the things that kind of come with it. And why wouldn't they be able to essentially step in your shoes to now be the contracting party with X?
I suspect that if I announce, and I might announce this, I would like to sell our @Twit account for $1.50 and I did, that X would not stop me and say, "Oh no, we own that. You can't sell it for $1.50." It feels like this is them weighing in on the entire process.
Well, I think both.
Remember, X kept Infowars on the air.
Yeah,
when he was kicked off YouTube.
Brought him back.
Yeah.
Right.
Both things I think are true. I think X reasonably wants to make sure that there is not a property right construed in a handle, because weird things can happen where they start ending up obligated in ways that are going to be very uncomfortable for them. And let's say not just them, but any social media platform or any platform whatsoever. Wait, you've offered somebody a handle and now that person has a property right in the handle. That is a big deal. But they are generally thought to be assignable. And there is a thing of, do they have any business stepping in and impinging on that assignability? I don't know. We'd have to look at the terms of service. And that's the thing where maybe the motivations are less than, pure.
Right.
It seems to me,
if they take it back, can they assign it to somebody else? And that's the kind of thing that Musk likes to do.
They would give it back to Alex Jones, right?
That would be a strange thing, because somebody has trademark rights in Infowars. That is, I think, an alienable asset that can get discharged through the bankruptcy.
So Twitter couldn't or X couldn't reasonably take @Twit and give it to Cathy Gellis because I have a trademark, and so that I have some interest in that.
It's a little more complicated than that, but he's done that. He's taken handles that people have had for decades and taken them away and redone it, but maybe there's not like findable trademark rights in that.
With Elon Musk, it's and many of these people, it's always rules for thee, not me.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Is there
Emily,
a way to think about this that in my head, I'm trying to think, is it similar to like if I'm a commercial property owner, so I'm X and I own like a physical commercial building and a business uses my space, and then that business sublets the space to someone else and like brokers a deal, but still the building owner still owns the building. Like, is that a fair analogy? Like because you're kind of using their platform. Like, to me, they kind of own it because it's on their servers. They can take it down at any time. Ultimately, their finger's on the trigger and you're like a renter on the platform.
I'm wary of saying yes because I don't want that analogy to accidentally communicate too much, but that is kind of what I was saying in terms of the terms of service, that there's a contract and that the contract would be assignable. And in the scenario you're describing, there's some assignability of rights, but the landlord still owns the building. And what you have is a contractual relationship. Slightly different than your example, because I was a sublessor, but you can actually sometimes you want to move out, you can sometimes assign your rights as the tenant. You've assigned your lease, you assign the contract. And if it's a commercial situation, also you're leasing the space, but you still own the business as a trademark. So you could move to a new space and it would follow you. Yeah, but ultimately, if your business is a restaurant and it's taking place in this physical space, that it's a very important part of the business. I guess you could relocate, like maybe you could go to Blue Sky or, anything. But I think X has a very serious ownership stake in anyone and all of our content on that platform. I think it's almost a prideful exercise to think you own it. You don't.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they don't own our tweets.
It feels like they do. I mean,
it feels like they do, but I think I haven't looked at the terms of service in a while. Yeah, I haven't looked at the terms of service in a while, but most of the times the terms of service, as I understand them, are written in a way that says you own them, but you've given us a really expansive license because they obviously need to hold back enough rights that they can actually continue to publish your stuff and not run into copyright problems, but they don't tend to own them. I don't think they want to own them, although now they kind of want to own them because they want to train for the AI. But that's a whole other argument about whether you actually need to own it to have that happen anyway. But
got it.
Yeah. And he's also making it up as they go along. Like we had the entire industry that made it up as we went along, as social media became a thing and internet becomes a thing and we had to kind of learn stuff. But we kind of ended up settling some stuff and then kind of Musk shows up and pretends that nobody's ever figured out anything before him and does things afresh. And, so it's one of these things he's wrong. He's probably poorly motivated, but accidentally somewhat right.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think that, Elon Musk hates it when there's a prominent news story that is not about him.
Right.
So,
well, he's going to have to fight with Donald J over that one. That's going to be a tough one. Yeah.
Rumor has it their fight is.
Hey, we called it on this show. Last time I was on TWiT, we called it that they were going to have a falling out and we were taking over under.
Have they have a falling out? I bet in June.
It's going to happen.
Not yet.
Oh, there's leaks that. There's leaks about sufferance of.
We'll see. I'm on the books for June, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure there's sufferance coming from his wife as well. So
I had a weird brush with X recently that might be worth discussing. I might write an article about it. I'm not sure, but so a couple months ago, I noticed that X actually responded to journalists' emails for one time. It was about a report.
No, they're supposed to send you a poop emoji. What the hell?
Right. So now they're responding. That was a couple months ago. And then last week, I was feeling gutsy, and I'm PC Mag now is co-owned with CNET, and there's a bunch of publications under Ziff Davis. So we're having this big party at CES. I invited TWiT as well. You can all come.
Thank you. We're not going to be there, but thank you.
I know no one's going to be there because who wants to go? Going. But if you're going, you can have some free drinks. But I emailed X, just press at X, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to come? And
what happened?
I got a response, and the head of media strategy wants to come. And he also wants to get coffee with me in New York this week.
That's an admission that they read the emails before they send out the poop emoji.
Also, he said he was hired recently. So it seems like X recently hired a head of media strategy who is now actually engaging with the media.
But only if you invite him to a party, Emily.
I invited him to a party. He invited me to coffee.
Well, that's true.
I feel like maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to tease out what's going on because on the one hand... Here's my advice.
Go to coffee before you write an article about this, okay? Get the coffee in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to email him and remind him about the coffee because I don't think we set a date. But
definitely.
I don't know if it means... Elon has been tweeting about how the press is useless. The mainstream press is garbage. Twitter is the new press. Citizen journalists are the new press. So that's been his MO for the past 2 years. But, they are kind of having some user issues potentially. Maybe they realize they do need the press, but there's definitely a difference in what I'm seeing in my inbox versus what Elon is projecting. So I don't know.
Very interesting.
So they might be warming up to the press because they realize they need the press. I don't know, but I'll get coffee.
User numbers are in the toilet and they're just tanking.
Right.
So I think he'd like to continue to toe that line while simultaneously trying to do something to turn around the user activity.
But usually when you hire someone, it's to solve a problem or accelerate progress in a certain area. So it suggests to me that they think this needs attention.
Is he really about the citizen journalism stuff?
1,000%.
Because he keeps advocating for policy that would be really bad for it, really bad for his business.
As Mike said, he wants press up, but about him. So if it's about him and it's positive, he likes it. If it's not about him and it's not positive, or if it's about him and not positive, he doesn't like it.
Well, I'm just talking the Section 230 stuff. He should be I'm not really happy with his role in government, but I should be breathing a sigh of relief that, okay, we've got the best ally we could ever have for Section 230, with the ear of the White House. And that's not the way it's turning out at all.
He advocates against EV legislation too. I think we're foolish to think he's really thinking straight or thinking like someone who needs more money. He really doesn't. It's a different game for him. I think looking at this and regarding him as an economically rational actor is not the frame to understand what he does. So. Legacy opinions of him that need to be seriously refreshed.
That's a very nice way to put it. Very nice way to put it. All right, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, the Federal Appeals Court has declined to block the ban on TikTok. They did that on Friday, so now it's up to the Supreme Court or nothing. January 19th, the day before Inauguration Day, TikTok will either be sold or somehow magically shut down. We'll talk about that when we come back with Cathy Gellis. As you might have gathered, an attorney. CGCounsel.com is her website. Of course, she writes at Tech Dirt and for the Copia Foundation, and is admitted to what do you call it? Advocate before the Supreme Court.
I'm a member of the Supreme Court bar, but and also the bars of a whole bunch of other courts. It means I'm allowed to file stuff there.
Perfect. So we're gonna lobby you to file something about drones in just a second. Also with us, Emily Forlini,
who's definitely not cleared to testify in front of the Supreme Court, and therefore is sparring with Cathy.
No, don't spar. It's okay. You can disagree. This isn't sparring. This is conversation.
We'll bond over New Jersey.
Yeah.
I feel like we're bonding.
I like Elon's most recent X post, where it's the New Jersey Guide to Aircraft Identification. If you'd show that to us.
Oh, see, you guys all agree with him that it's fake. Joke is on you.
Basically, it's a picture of a variety of aircraft silhouettes, all of which are labeled drone. From the 767 to the Iranian mothership drone.
Oh, that's embarrassing for you guys. I'm so sorry.
Yes, we're on the same side as Elon Musk. I never thought I'd say that. Also with us, Mike Elgan of MachineSociety.ai.
Yep. And just like Cathy, I am admitted to most of the bars here in Oaxaca, as far as I can remember.
I tell you, I remember going into that pulque bar. I don't remember coming out, though. Boy,
the etymology of the word bar really is the same.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you stand before the court bar, right?
There literally was a bar in a whole bunch of these contexts, and the contexts have just evolved in their own sort of realm.
Judge Roy Bean had a bar.
Yes.
Our show today brought to you by those great folks at Shopify. And I have to say, right up front, I have a dog in this hunt because my son, Salt Hank, uses Shopify to sell his salts and his pickles. He loves Shopify because it made it so easy for him to set up an e-commerce site. When you think about businesses whose sales are rocketing, businesses like Allbirds or the shirts I wear, Untuck It, you think about an innovative product, a progressive brand, buttoned-down marketing, but the often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling and for shoppers buying easy. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Oh, I love Shopify. Nobody does sales better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay, that boosts conversions up to 50%. Far fewer carts going abandoned, way more sales being made. Love those sales. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Salt Hank uses and Allbirds and Untuck It. Sign up for, I'll admit the other guys, sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/twit. That's all lowercase. Shopify, Shopify, shopify.com/twit. Go there to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/twit. I love that sound. Shopify. All right, so TikTok. The clock is ticking, I guess one would say. January 19th is just a month away. I don't even know how the U.S. It's a law the U.S. Congress passed and President Biden signed that somehow, if the company is not sold to an American entity, that they will somehow be banned forever. Don't know how you do that. Does that mean Apple and Google pull them off the stores? Is that sufficient? Well, I still have TikTok on my device. I'm sure a lot of people will. Do you block traffic from the TikTok IP addresses? What do you do? Supreme Court, will they? So first of all, they haven't weighed in, but will they offer cert, do you think? Will they give this a hearing?
Well, the
Cathy?
first thing that's coming to the fore is timeline control. So
they'd have to step in on an emergency basis at this point, right?
So TikTok went and asked the DC Circuit, it's a little confused what they asked for, but they basically said, could you call a timeout and give us a chance to, get our petitions together and figure out our next steps? They
said to this appeals court, if you don't block it, the Supreme Court's going to have to put it on their shadow docket.
Right. And so
out of respect for the Supreme Court's vital role, this court should grant an interim injunction that enables a more deliberate and orderly process. They're just trying to stop the clock. And the lower court said no.
Right. The lower court. And let's also not forget the lower court is the appeals court. When this law was written, it was written in a way that bypassed the district courts and said, if there's any issue over this law, it has to go straight to the DC Circuit. Wow. And, on the one hand, there's something handy with saying whose jurisdiction the dispute would be in, because we didn't want this to go to Texas and sit in the Fifth Circuit where everything is very crazy down there. But we got a crazy result out of the DC Circuit too. And we got it without a record being developed.
This is kind of surprising to me, a layperson. They said there's no First Amendment issue at all. And a lot of our contributors here have argued, what are you talking about? Don't the people who post on TikTok, American citizens who post on TikTok, have a First Amendment right to post on TikTok?
There's a variety of First Amendment interests that the court overlooked. One of them is that TikTok itself would appear to have a First Amendment right. Certainly the U.S. subsidiary, and possibly also even the foreign entity, and what is the lens by which the court how quickly and easily should the court dispense any First Amendment claims that TikTok has? But meanwhile, users of TikTok have their own First Amendment interests in being able to communicate through it and also to consume content through it, that there's right to read issues. I've talked about right to read in other contexts on the show before, and here's one instance where it's relevant. Do users of TikTok have the right to receive information via TikTok? Because it impinges on their ability to consume information if TikTok goes away, goes away at the compulsion of the government. And so the court was overlooking those First Amendment interests and also the ones that users like to speak through it. And what happens to that speech if TikTok goes away?
The DC Circuit said that it satisfies a legal standard known as strict scrutiny that has to be met for government restrictions on speech to stand. Quote, the act was the culmination of extensive bipartisan action by Congress and by successive presidents. I guess successive means Trump and Biden.
Yeah.
It was carefully crafted to deal only with control by a foreign adversary, and it was part of a broader effort to counter by the way, there's some question on this next statement, a well-substantiated national security threat. As far as I know, that court was not offered any of the secret information that the intelligence services gave Congress and the president. So I don't know what they're talking about. They basically said, all right, well, you say there's a substantial national security threat, so we're just going to take it as written, posed by the People's Republic of China. Again, quoting, under these circumstances, the provisions of the act that are before us withstand the most searching review. In other words, no First Amendment protection at all. Will the Supreme Court, you think, do the same thing, Cathy?
Oh, gosh, I hope not, because I think what we need to understand...
There is a standard for, national security. There's a precedent for that in in the case of national security, limiting what foreign nationals can do in the U.S.
That's not how heightened scrutiny is supposed to work. This isn't how heightened scrutiny is supposed to work. This is a problem irrespective of TikTok itself, that the way the court reached its extremely trite analysis is we do not want this precedent on the books. If I were going to be China and I wanted to really stick it to America, I would get to this point and abandon the appeal because we have just broken First Amendment law in the United States if this is what stands.
Wonderful.
It's the court didn't actually decide that strict scrutiny applied, but it decided that hypothetically, if this could pass a strict scrutiny test, then we won't worry about it. So they used it more as kind of the hypothetical, like worst case scenario, if it can pass strict scrutiny, then it's definitely okay, as opposed to us arguing about what was the appropriate level and then thinking, well, it passed intermediate scrutiny, but it didn't pass strict scrutiny. So did we get the result wrong? So here they're like, we are going to decide that the ban is okay, and we're going to give it a test under the most strict way of looking at this. And doing it with the way that has the least leeway for the government, we've decided that the government is totally fine. And it did it by basically, it's calling its analysis strict scrutiny, but it really reads like a rational basis test. And a rational basis is like the easiest test for the government to clear of, did the government have, a good, something reasonable it wanted to accomplish? Did this reasonably come anywhere close to accomplishing it? That's not the official language.
And to be clear, they're not ruling in favor or against TikTok. They're just saying we're not going to pause it. That the Congress has been clear that they wanted this to happen by January 19th, and we're not going to pause it. The Supreme Court has two ways to, in effect, ban TikTok. One is just not to accept it, right? They could just say, yeah, we're not going to grant certiorari. We don't need to rule on this. The appeals court stands. Although it doesn't sound like what the appeals court was really thinking.
Well, there's also the sell. So people say ban because it's more dramatic, but there's also the sell option.
Well, ByteDance has said we're not going to sell.
Yeah.
The Chinese government has said
itself.
Even if ByteDance sold, we're not going to allow them to sell the algorithm, which means if somebody like Frank McCourt comes along, he's launched a $20 billion bid to buy TikTok for America.
I find myself
even if he won, he wouldn't get the algorithm. So what do you get?
Well,
you
the
get
court,
the users
the
and
court
the name.
has decided that it's not a ban, it's not a forced sale, it's just divestiture. This is totally fine. Nothing to see here. No, that's totally something to see here. This is a real constitutional, this is a really aggressive thing that the government has done that the court is looking at. It looks like fine. They're incredibly deferential to the government and its judgment about what the national security problem was. But it's also being extremely deferential, even though one of the stated purposes of the government is to control the content of speech that people end up interacting with. Like, I understood this, maybe. I still hated it and think it's unconstitutional when it was just about the data slurpage of what, TikTok is. TikTok is probably everything that it's being accused of in terms of it gets user data and it sends that user data to people who shouldn't have the user data. But then again,
who, by the way, are also buying it from companies like National Public Data
and
legally.
Who's not slurping data and sending it to people who shouldn't have it.
Right.
But
China can buy that data from data brokers in the U.S. just like anybody else.
Right. So, but if that's the way the law was done, then I think it still doesn't pass constitutional scrutiny because that's not narrowly tailored to solving a data problem by forcing the entire platform to be divested. But that's not the only thing that they're trying to do. They don't like that China is covertly affecting what information people can interact with.
I mean, obviously.
They don't like the information that people are interacting with. They are trying to go at the content of information that people interact with. Why don't
they then shut down CCTV or RT, which are propaganda arms for these Russia and China?
This decision says they could ban the BBC.
Right.
There's really no limiting.
No, it doesn't, because it's not a foreign adversary.
Yes, it is.
Well,
it's not an adversary.
One small step that our president-elect needs to do when he's in office, and suddenly Britain is an adversary and we don't get BBC anymore. There is
that's a little. I mean,
there's
the
no
Chinese
limiting principle that would keep this from happening.
It's clear China's an adversary.
It's very clear.
We know that.
Who our adversaries are.
Yeah.
There's a superpower conflict brewing between the United States and China in Taiwan. They're going to invade Taiwan, and we are going to defend Taiwan. It's a superpower adversary that's going to involve information warfare.
Yes.
And for the Chinese Communist Party to just determine U.S. public opinion on this issue is unacceptable. And so, it's still in the realm of potentiality. We can assume. I mean, personally, I would favor keeping TikTok around, but having like a kill switch on it, because, the ability to track the location of special, military people who are using TikTok and whatever else, who knows? I haven't thought about it that deeply, but clearly there's a capability.
Well, it's already banned for military and government, and it should be.
But we're talking about asymmetric information warfare, where all of the U.S. social networks are banned in China. The Chinese people have no access.
Because
they don't have a First Amendment.
That's the difference between us and China. And
exactly.
We don't want to be more like China, do we?
But the First Amendment can't allow foreign adversaries to just freely spread propaganda in the United States.
It does, and it has to, because there's no limiting principle to say what is the difference and who's going to decide. The First Amendment, doesn't have a national security exemption to it. This is something that's been invented. But even if we think that a national security exemption could at times pass strict scrutiny, this is so broad in the way that they did it, that they're deciding that this government has decided it doesn't like certain content, and so it's trying to look for a leverage to control what content that American citizens get to interact with. It's very thing that it's trying to do. The First Amendment says make no law, and they're trying to make a law that does exactly what the First Amendment says make no law for.
Okay.
So if we do compare why we're not, the same in both countries, it's because China doesn't have a First Amendment restraining its government from doing things like this. We do. And this was so tritely analyzed to figure out how the government could just get this leeway to go do this to TikTok. There's no limiting principle that would keep it from being able to do this to any other content produced by anybody else. And there's also a right that Americans have to be able to get access to information from abroad, including people who may not necessarily be our friends.
That's akin to the the People's Republic, the Chinese Army having a First Amendment right to all the passwords of all the military companies in the United States, or something like that. It's like if there's a point at which they don't.
That's not free speech.
Yeah, I don't even. That's not analogous to anything going on here.
My point is that things change. You have different relationships with in terms of information with adversaries than you do with everybody else. And so the question is what is an adversarial relationship? And how do you define that? And what are the rules around that? It's got to be within the realm of the First Amendment for there to be some controls on adversaries, at least during times of war, right, with those adversaries, for them to spread propaganda, AI-based propaganda within our country. There has to be.
There's a long history of doing that in the United States. Yes. Right after the First Amendment was passed, they passed the Alien and Sedition Acts in 1798, which forbade false and malicious statements about the federal government from aliens.
Yeah. I mean, and
we've
that was
always done this.
We did it, but we didn't. I mean, that happened and it never actually went off the books, but it was so massively unpopular. It sank John Adams' presidency. He was a political nullity at that point. This isn't something that certainly, and we've got 100+ years of modern First Amendment jurisprudence, and this is completely out of step with that jurisprudence. And the test that they did itself with how they analyzed strict scrutiny of whether it was compelling purpose and narrowly tailored. Even if you wanted to credit it for the compelling purpose, it was not narrowly
But is
tailored.
there no allowance for the fact that social media and AI-based algorithms designed to, that can be tweaked secretly without any access to the algorithms is different?
It's
Surely
not
it's
different.
different. Surely it's different.
It
Of
is
course
not
it's different.
The
Yes,
only
it is.
thing that First Amendment jurisprudence says where we've impinged on foreign actors has been when it's come to spectrum, and that falls into because spectrum is different because it's finite. The idea. Otherwise, there are cases that actually make clear that Americans have their own interest in their own right to be able to consume information, including information that's not produced from America. And it is too easy to declare anybody an enemy. I mean,
I think that there is a point, and let me take this argument, Cathy. There is a point to saying we trust Americans. They should be able to read anything from anybody, and we trust them to make the right decisions. And who is it? We certainly don't trust our government to make the decision about what we can and cannot see, right, Mike? We don't want that.
Right. And that's been very clear with the jurisprudence.
Let Mike address that.
Yeah. So when I say that social media algorithms, especially a super algorithm like the one on TikTok, is different from allowing the Japanese to distribute pamphlets in the United States during World War II or something like that, it's obviously different, clearly different. And the problem is that the laws don't reflect that difference. We're still sort of rummaging around in the dusty old laws to try to govern something that's radically different from what
I understand what you're saying. And this is a larger issue, which is that somehow social media has weaponized speech. Yeah. And that suddenly, in every respect, that suddenly, and this kind of leads to things like the Australian law forbidding people under 16 from participating in social media. Yeah. Or in fact, we have laws like that in, I think, Kentucky and Texas. It seems to me that it's appropriate for us to draw a bright line that says government shouldn't decide what we can consume or not.
I agree. I think that the solution to all the social media algorithm problems is very, very obvious and clear. Like, are they like a newspaper, or are they like the telephone? Well, I think they should be both. I think there should be a clearly defined feed required by law for all of them to say, okay, here's the algorithmically sorted or human sorted content, which is,
and here's
in a sense, we're a newspaper.
Yeah.
And here's the feed. Wait a minute. Hear me out. And here's the feed of the people you followed. You get every single thing that they post in order with nothing removed and nothing added, right? And those two things need to be separate. Right now, people just blindly open the thing and they receive the opinion that comes at them from whoever's determining the algorithm. And this is a real problem.
No,
that actually seems fair. What about that? That wouldn't be a restriction of speech. It would just merely be a
clarification,
rule, a law.
Be a solution to the problem.
I think it would be a good
are they a common carrier or not?
It's not a solution at all. And
most people, Mike, would choose the algorithmic feed. You understand?
They probably
that's
would,
why
but that'd be a clear choice.
It's more entertaining.
That'd be a clear choice. Right now, they don't know that
they don't have a choice.
That choice has been made for them.
What about that, Cathy?
Absolutely not. Hard no. And even this Supreme Court would say no. First of all, it's already come close to analogizing it to the newspaper. It hasn't. Thomas and Alito and Gorsuch are a little not on board with that, but it's getting there. ACLU versus Reno made it clear that internet counted as a First Amendment protected media space, communication space, as anything offline we had. And what you're talking about is just one small thing would basically disrupt everything that happens online and all First Amendment perspective that we have on it. This is not a small thing you're describing. You're talking about basically making the internet a First Amendment free zone for the government to regulate as it sees fit. And good luck having any free speech, any complaints about any powerful people, any government, any democratic organization, if that was the rule. There's a reason that we make the government stay out of what content is consumed by people and what they can express and what they can assume and what they can be associated with and how they can see it and how other people can present it. The reason the First Amendment says no is because that's a good way to make sure that you don't have any democracy anymore. So no, that's not a small thing that you're saying.
Mike, you're muted. Okay. Mike, you're muted.
Mike, you're talking, but nothing's coming out.
Sorry about that.
That would have been a great time for me to talk because
I know
that
was your chance and you blew it.
I blew it. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, Mike will respond, then you, Emily. I'm sorry.
Elon Musk acts as an extreme example is anything but the open free internet. It's the Elon Musk show 24/7. It's his First Amendment rights that's being protected and should be, right? But that's an example. Like these walled gardens are not the open internet. Those are two different things. And if somebody's determining what opinions are being published, right, that's just like the op-ed section of the New York Times, and it's nothing like just like the open internet. And that's why I think there should be one feed that's like the Elon Musk show, and the other feed that's the open internet, where you select what you hear from and who you want to hear it from. These things are different, and the whole algorithm problem.
I think, Mike, you got a problem because now you have the government telling Elon Musk, a private individual, what to do with his company, a private company. And I think that what I don't want to put words in Cathy's mouth. No one needs to, but it's a slippery slope.
They already do it. Of course, he can't allow the publication of child abuse material. He can't allow.
Yeah, there's certain illegal things.
In Germany, he can't even show a swastika.
Right. I'm not defending German law. I'm going to take issues with the fact that Germany doesn't have a First Amendment, and we get some. They can arrest opposition leaders for having said the wrong things. So no,
it's one of the. I agree with you. It is one of our most valuable strengths in this country is free speech.
Right.
And I understand that it sounds like, in your opinion, any abridgment of absolute freedom of speech is a slippery slope that's problematic.
Well, you mean to me? I mean, yes, I generally do. The reason we have strict scrutiny is for the very select things where maybe the rule needs to be different. The government has to thread a very tiny needle in order to do
security, right?
No. I mean, national security might be a compelling reason, but it doesn't answer the question unto itself. And then it also has to be narrowly tailored. So, for instance, in the example that was just brought up, Musk and Twitter have some obligation to police for CSAM, but even that is a more complex policy argument and legal requirement. Like, they only have to police what they know about. They don't have to police it prospectively, and there's reasons why you wouldn't want them to. Anyway, we're essentially relitigating the last 30 years of internet law, which has found that the First Amendment applies online and has to apply online in a relatively broad way. And that the fact that occasionally we might have threaded the needle for a regulation that can survive strict scrutiny does not mean that the government gets to help itself to any sort of content.
All right. I got to pause you both because Emily gets to get a word in edgewise. Okay. Go ahead, Emily.
Okay. I really appreciate Cathy's perspective as well as Mike's. My gut feeling is that this is the right thing to do, what's being happening to TikTok, because this is the only thing that I have seen have bipartisan support in this extremely divided country that we have. I think that if both sides agree this is the way, there is really something there. And it's a true shame that most Americans don't have education on cybersecurity, don't know why China is a threat. why everything is behind smoke and mirrors. But I think there's enough here that there is a real important threat. And to me, it's less of a free speech issue and more of a cybersecurity, national security issue. And I think that I see a lot of people on my TikTok feed who are making a lot of money off of TikTok, like creators who are advocating against the ban.
My son wouldn't have a business without TikTok.
But I don't think that's a reason to keep something. I'm sorry. Like, I know we like it, but just because you are making money from it,
it has nothing to do with them making money.
That's why I appreciate your perspective, Cathy, because what I see the conversation among young people is completely ill-informed on why China is a threat and why these types of things do have bipartisan support. And I think that is a real shame and an embarrassment
in part because
for young
TikTok
people.
is super pro-China and the Chinese version of TikTok, by the way, and Cathy, I know this is irrelevant and they don't have a First Amendment, but the Chinese version of TikTok is like super constructive and
they're pumping us stuff they know, I don't know, maybe they don't know this, but it is affecting our mental health. It is shaping how people think.
We can speak how we need to speak and discover new ways and teach ourselves new things because we have the First Amendment protecting our ability to protect the platforms to give us the other opportunity.
I don't think that protecting free speech is protecting TikTok. You can
protecting free speech
whatever
is
you
if
want.
We don't like it. If we're talking about that, people are uninformed.
This is about a company.
It's not about a company. It's about
yes, it is. TikTok is a company.
First Amendment law in order to stick it to TikTok. And the court agreed with you that the whole kumbaya of Democrats and Republicans who weren't actually agreeing necessarily for the same reasons. Some of them just didn't like it because they don't like the kids today are on TikTok. And some of them, those kids were talking about ways that didn't like their politics. It's a really convenient way of sticking it to the kids who are speaking out against their politics if you take away the platform that they were speaking on.
You can speak on many platforms.
Hold on.
Many platforms you can speak on. We don't need this one.
I think all of us have had a chance to say our point of view, and it's pretty clear it's difficult. Let's put it that way.
This changed the law.
It's also clear that we don't know how the Supreme Court's going to rule on this because it's kind of a wild card these days.
It's also clear that we're not even talking about why they banned it and why it's a national security issue.
We don't know why.
The problem.
Well, Emily, we don't know why, and that's the part of the problem.
That's the problem. That's why we don't know what's actually
just
going on.
Just like with drones, haven't been willing to give us their thinking. They've merely said, well, we know it is. You just have to trust us.
But what if they're right?
But I agree. I think Cathy has a really strong point, which is that the First Amendment is a very, very important part of our politics and needs to be protected. But I think we've all made our points. I don't think we've come to a resolution on it. I don't know if we will. I will be very interested. It does sound like it is something the Supreme Court should rule on.
It should. I mean, I'm frustrated about the policy decision in this argument because I think the policy is, yes, this is bad. But let me just frame it this way. It changed fundamentally the way First Amendment jurisprudence behaved. And it changed it in a way that if we're going to be able to say no to the government trying to set content policy for us, our ability to do so is much weaker. So even if you think that, okay, TikTok, fine, let's say everybody agrees and they're bad and they should feel bad and go away. Clearly, that's not going to be the case on all sorts of other types of internet expression that we're going to have going forward. It's never been the case in the past, and there's certainly no reason to suspect we're going to have it now. I mean, we're not going to get that much kumbaya-ish out of what's going on with, the politics that we're heading into. And this hurt the ability for people to say something other than what the government likes. That is a problem unto itself. It really broke a lot of precedent. It broke the strict scrutiny test, and it will be bad if some court doesn't step in to fix it.
And by the way, Leo, you tried to change the subject, a valiant effort. But I just want to quickly say that are what you're saying that you wouldn't mind so much, or you would find it in support of the First Amendment to have a law that essentially accomplished the same thing but did it in a different way that protected the future unintended consequences, or is just the outcome is the problem?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question.
So I think saying don't have a free speech issue, but still get rid of TikTok? Like, would you
You
support
said that
getting?
they wrote the law in such a way as that it opens up the door to all kinds of horrible. But is there a way to write a law for the outcome of TikTok going away that could be done in such a way that would protect the First Amendment in the future?
So I don't want to say it in terms of TikTok going away, but there were two things that the government wanted. There were two concerns that the government had. One was the data slurpage, and one was the covertly manipulating the content that we're exposed to.
Right.
The second one, I don't think in any way, shape, or form can survive First Amendment scrutiny because it inherently was trying to interact with what the content policy was. So I think that's doomed from the outset. And the first part, I think it's doomed when the way they wrote the law had just such a catastrophic effect to it. Like basically you ban TikTok and that's going to have speech harms. But the data slurpage, there's, I think some legitimate policy issues there, as we were just discussing, like, a lot of companies slurp way too much data.
It's also an issue that they won't sell the algorithms. Like, it feels like they are kind of hiding something.
But the algorithms was the other part. In terms of the data slippage, to answer Mike's question, I think there's things that the U.S. government could do to address the data slurpage, like actually having a comprehensive, data protection policy. Now, you can write them really badly, which have First Amendment impacts, but I think that is a needle you could thread. It would justify it and would take care of a lot of the concerns that people have with what the problem is that TikTok is Chinese.
I mean, unfortunately, even though that's the public may be more concerned about the data slurpage, from a national security perspective, 95% of the national security threat is the other one. Is the ability
Mike,
to
China and Russia both use X.com to do the same thing.
They
both
do,
use Facebook to do the same thing.
But they can't
do you
control
ban
the
X and
algorithms.
Facebook as a result?
They
What do you
can't
do
control
about
they don't have control of the algorithms. The Chinese law says that basically if we want to, we can go into any Chinese company and we can look at all the data and see what's happening and make changes and do like they specifically
but let's say
that.
Elon Musk decides that he's going to favor Chinese content or Russian content on his site. What would we do about that?
Well, I mean, I think that's another issue that we'd have to figure out what's happening there. But I think
it's his protected right to do so.
Well, what if banning TikTok is the right thing? Like, we haven't even explored that. Like, we're just TikTok apologists. I mean, there's both sides of the aisle think that this deal is the right thing. Why do we have no support for that?
Not everybody
public support
did. Some of the people they found common cause with.
People like TikTok. I watched so much TikTok. It's like, I need to get off TikTok. I like it. But people, their sons are making money on TikTok. Like, everyone here is so enchanted with TikTok. What if there's a problem?
I'm not enchanted with TikTok. I don't care. I never use it.
You're defending it to the death.
And I'm not defending TikTok. I am defending
First Amendment.
I am defending the First Amendment because it isn't just TikTok that will fall. There's no limiting principle to what they did to TikTok in this legislation and what the court blessed, and any other platform and speech that the government wants to turn to next. It will look a little bit different, but not in any meaningful way. This greases the skids, including on even the point of
it's
the
about
algorithm.
A foreign adversary. It's about a foreign adversary. It's about a foreign adversary. That is defined.
Way too easy to get a foreign adversary, and there's nothing about the way they defined it here that makes me think
it's the countries
it's
are
only
listed.
This one.
Wait a minute, though, Emily. Isn't it conceivable that South Korea will become a foreign adversary and North Korea become our ally under President Trump? And if that were the case, you wouldn't be able to buy Samsung TVs. How would you feel then?
We may feel like it's
How would you guys
unlikely.
feel if it was the right decision to ban TikTok and you argued against it?
No, it isn't because there's no evidence that it is. You have to give us evidence that it is.
The government needs to give us the evidence. That's what they owe us. The problem is they think it's probably a national security issue to release it. But I've reported on so many shady things from China. It's outrageous. China is an absolute threat. And I feel like we are losing that thread. That is true.
So the thing is, I think, that's what I meant about the long play, that if China can cause us to give up our First Amendment rights because it was using them in a way that
I think
wasn't good, that is an interesting long play. But that's kind of where this decision left us.
Why is it giving up?
Let me see if I can shift it just a little bit. First of all, I'd like to say that Salt Hank doesn't need TikTok. He's killing it on Instagram. The other point I want to make is that I think all our points of view are clear, but I would love to know, Cathy, what you think the Supreme Court is actually going to do.
I mean, who knows with these particular judges, but I think I'm hoping they will at least buy time. And so if we have to do this via the shadow docket, I'm hoping they will at least buy time, because there are principles in law, and granted, this court hasn't been all that supportive of them lately.
What's interesting is if they buy one day,
exactly,
President Trump will be president the next day.
Even if they rule something on the 19th, Trump is, do some executive order that'll have to go through the courts and all that stuff. He's already announced that he's going to be more pro TikTok than he was when he tried to ban it when he was president. So,
well, let me
what do you think Trump is going to do?
Well, let me go back to Emily's point, because it's kind of like one of the things I'm trying to argue. The government can be arbitrary with what it likes one day and what it doesn't like another day. And if we allow the government to ever show up and say, well, based on the way we feel right now, we're going to control online speech, that's a problem.
That's
because
the point of the Constitution.
The Constitution says stay out of it, because you're going to change your minds. There's always going to be an opposition.
The Constitution is there to give you an eternal set of values that you adhere to, regardless of how the current government feels.
I agree and I appreciate it. I just think I'm suspicious that it's such a popular opinion to hate the TikTok ban, or there's too much consensus from among the people compared to the consensus in the government. There's a real gap, and I'm uncomfortable why everyone wants to keep it. And then the government on both sides is like, actually, this is like one of the biggest national security issues. So how do we reconcile that?
But wait a minute, Emily. The government on the right doesn't like it because they censor conservative speech.
Yeah, I mean, kids today were like organizing
the government
against.
On the left doesn't like it because I forgot why the left doesn't like it. What? But they don't agree on why they want to ban TikTok. They just agree they want to ban TikTok.
Yeah.
That right there should tell you something.
Yeah, one of the things to be aware of is pretext. It is very easy for a censorial government to use pretext, and national security is a real bogeyman that's very easy to deploy.
It's protect the women, protect the children, and protect our national borders.
I mean, I think an answer
it's just a big gap.
Well, I think an answer to Emily's point is like, I could believe, I mean, I'm not arguing with you necessarily of is TikTok good. TikTok may be bad and maybe an overall bad thing. I can accept that, but the government doesn't get to do this in response to the bad thing, because there's no way to do. Okay,
I see this being one of those things where people post about how dumb the TikTok ban is, and that gets them more followers.
we're operating at a higher level than that. I don't think
I'm really suspicious of the current dialogue I'm seeing. Like, this is a good dialogue, but just the fact that saying the TikTok ban is dumb makes people like you, and therefore it's going in that direction, is highly suspicious.
Being pro-platform is good on any platform, and
TikTok is a company that's making way more money than you, and I feel like people are bending the knee to TikTok, and there's tons of issues here.
There's a legal dimension, and then there's the public dimension. The Constitution exists for the people of the United States, like U.S. citizens, and I'm pretty sure that almost the vast majority of U.S. citizens believe that the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment exist to protect American citizens. That's one of the benefits and perks of American citizenship. The idea that it protects Xi Jinping.
Right.
I don't think most people
That's
realize.
what I'm saying. There's reason to this. Isn't it a black and white? Or we're presenting it as black and white. People want it to be black and white issue. It's not. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sure that this was black and white in terms of its unconstitutionality. I don't think this is a close call.
Yeah, she's not defending TikTok for TikTok's sake. Let me ask, though, a question. During World War II, were there limits on Nazi propaganda in the United States?
I don't know.
I suspect there were.
Yeah, there were.
For sure there was. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, one of the things is that our line of precedent goes back to in World War I, when you weren't allowed to protest against the draft because they thought that would destabilize America. So the law at that point was, of course, the government can jail Eugene Debs because he was organizing against the draft, and we needed the draft so that the country would come together and fight this war.
But again, American citizen
over the 100 years,
exercising his free rights.
That is a mistake. And now
an American citizen exercising his free right to assembly and all that stuff is different from Adolf Hitler exercising his constitutional right to spread propaganda in the U.S. They're different.
That wasn't really a
under
situation.
U.S. law? Are they not different?
I don't think that was a scenario that necessarily got treated by law, but one of the things is that sorry, I lost the
You've done a great job.
Well, I'm just saying we probably have a precedent of violating the First Amendment in times of war. I would imagine that's the case.
I don't think understand that it's a line of cases that started from World War I that have moved now, and they've moved very steadily and very consistently away from the government gets to do something. Right. This is what the point I was going to make. The idea that the Bill of Rights protects only Americans is not actually necessarily the case. It's not necessarily the case in that all of the laws enumerated only apply to American citizens. And some of the reason for that is because there's no way to actually have it apply to American citizens only and not other people, because if you had to do the test of are you a citizen or not, it would already compromise the views of the rights of the Americans.
But we do have the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which has a legal right to prevent foreign nationals from investing in U.S. properties,
that is different, and it's not seen in the speech context. In the speech context, Americans do, and this has been recognized by a case that I can't think of the name offhand. Americans have the right to consume information and including information produced by non-Americans. So if you're going to, and again, when you look at this, American users have their own rights that this impinges upon. So yes, it's impinging upon TikTok's rights, but it also impinges on Americans' rights because it's affecting the information ecosystem they get to participate in. And that is where the rubber hits the road, if nothing else.
What's the counter argument? Like, are there people that in the legal space or in your sphere, in your world, that disagree with you?
I mean, there's a lot of people that keep trying to pull out Tech Section 230 and ban the internet and censor it.
All the attorneys working for the government.
In terms of the people who I like and respect, there is deep alarm over this decision. And the basis of the alarm, again, really has very little to do with TikTok itself and has entirely to do with the framework of what the court did, how it applied its strict scrutiny test, and what that would mean for anything else that's not TikTok that comes up next.
Is there one person who like the TikTok ban is associated with? Like, who raised the bill? Who is there somebody?
President Trump started it, right? And then the U.S. Congress voted it in this current session, and Biden signed the law.
And I believe also, and the court is like, and it's esteemed judgment and wisdom. Congress decided to have passed this law. It wasn't getting passed directly, and it got passed, I believe, as part of getting glued to a must-pass bill, which is really, I believe that is the case, and it got the escape velocity that way. Like these laws, like the court is like, the very considered, esteem of the bipartisan in Congress. And it really ignored the evolution of the bill and the fact that common cause to pass it was made by people who, some are genuinely concerned about the national security impact, but some of them really didn't like what kids today were saying on TikTok and wanted to shut them up. And that was a big part of the motivation that pushed the bill and eventually got enough allies to get itself passed.
Here's a question, though. We were talking about what the restrictions were during World War II. In 1938, Congress passed the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which meant that everybody who's disseminating propaganda on behalf of foreign governments had to register with the State Department. So to what extent does algorithmic tweaks that favor the Chinese position or any other sort of propaganda fall under the 1938 FARA?
I don't think that was litigated. And the second thing is I would need to do something called shepherdizing, which anybody who cites an earlier precedent should do. And shepherdizing is you look up to see, is that decision still good law or have the courts moved away from it? So I don't know what the status of that sort of registration would be, but that's also, again, something much more narrow. And it's not like that was the issue.
Whether it still applies or not, there's a strong precedent for something that's at least akin to what we're talking about now, which is foreign adversaries disseminating propaganda with the United States. It can be shut down by the Congress, and That has happened in the past.
No, I'm saying that may not be good law at all. It doesn't count as a strong precedent if we've moved away from. No, it matters a lot.
It was enforced,
and now we may have repudiated it and repudiated in a way where it's. Well, if we repudiate it, we repudiate it with reason.
Neither Congress, nor the courts, nor the lawyers, nor the Supreme Court are infallible in any degree. I think that the fact that it's common sense that we shouldn't allow foreign adversaries to spread propaganda within the United States, if depending on the level of conflict, it's common sense. I think it's common sense, and it does not mean that the First Amendment is null and void or
common sense is that this is a dangerous road to go down.
Yeah, I'm not sure common sense agrees,
both are
Mike.
true. I mean, maybe both are true.
I'm not sure common sense agrees.
Common sense
I actually believe the American people are smart enough to hear all points of view, even adversaries' points of view.
Okay, but even movies are labeled PG-13 or whatever. It's okay to label content, for example.
The labeling happened because Congress was trying to censor the movies, which would have had a First Amendment problem, but because they didn't want to deal with the practical realities of that, the industry decided to self-regulate, and that's why they do that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with laws that are designed to inform the public where the.
Do you think the public pays any attention to movie ratings? And
no, not really.
Well,
you think that's really enhanced
you asked,
our
actually, so Mike, you'd asked the question of what could the law have done if everybody's worried.
I have to suspend this because as good as this conversation is, we spent an hour on it, and I think all the points have been well stated. I think at this point we're just kind of reiterating
too much free speech.
Too much free speech, and I, as a dictator, am going to end it right here. But
you
great
have the First
conversation.
Amendment right to do it.
That's right. It's your
Section
right.
230 protects me from any suits against me for doing that. But I think it's a great conversation. I'm really glad we had this conversation, and I would hope people would listen and think about it. It's an important question. I suspect that, in fact, TikTok will be shut down January 19th, and
then reopened on the 20th.
No, I don't think Trump, it's not number one on his agenda.
I don't think it's going to get shut down. That's part of the reason I'm bullish on just saying whatever I want about it. I think this story is just going to continue.
Right. It's going to get shut down. And Apple and Google are going to be forced. They're going to be forced to stop offering it in their store, and they will comply. And that'll be that. There'll be people who will say, I'll keep TikTok on my phone. And I'll still be able to see TikToks. And I imagine a lot of U.S. creators will continue to use TikTok.
So the irony is how much of a cybersecurity vulnerability it is to have unsupported software on people's personal devices. But I think an open question is, this may not be let's say this litigation hits a wall.
Okay, we're shutting it down,
It may not be the end of the litigation where will we see more? Well, no, Google and Apple comply. That will be the next story.
I think they have to. They comply with Russia and China for similar requests. I think they'll comply with the U.S. government.
I don't know.
They'd be foolish not to.
I think it's a sad day if they do. I'd like to see if they fight it.
This is going to be interesting. Maybe we'll be talking about this in a couple of weeks. We may well. Yeah. Next week's show will be a look back at the year, so to speak. We do this every year, which is kind of fun. We look at the top stories of 2024. We've put together a panel. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Of our own people. It'll be Micah Sargent, Father Robert Balaser. Richard Campbell's going to join us. He listens to TWiT on a regular basis. I always see him in our chat. Hi, Richard. And Paris Martineau next week on TWiT. The year end, and then the best of on December 29th. Excuse me. And then we'll get back together and start a show January 5th. And who knows, maybe by then we'll have some Supreme Court stuff to report. You're watching This Week in Tech with our great guests, very smart people. This is the problem when you get smart people on with a lot of opinions. They may not agree. And then fireworks, and I'm enjoying it. Mike Elgan is here from MachineSociety.ai. I'm sure you've written about this on your newsletter.
Oh, I think so. Yes.
More than once. And you may again. Emily Forlini, have you covered this on PC Mag?
Just the peripheral news, but not in depth, no.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting
I cover China
story.
all the time. So to me, I see it more from that lens. And that's why I just had a bad gut feeling about it from what I see about how we engage with them. But it's also why I appreciate Cathy's perspective on just she looks at it from a completely different lens.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we love having Cathy Gellis on. She is an advocate, and you can tell, contributor at TechDirt, cgcouncil.com. And as a avid reader of TechDirt, I think I know how Mike Masnick feels about this as well.
I don't think there's a lot of daylight between my opinion and Masnick's opinion.
I think it feels pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
That's a great place to go, techdirt.com, if you want to read Cathy's writing, Mike Masnick's, Carl Bodie, so many great people writing there about these issues. It's great to have all three of you on the show today. I would like to point out that normally we would have an ad here, but we don't. This is one of the issues that's facing many podcasts. I saw it the other day that 50% of all ad sales in the United States go to the top 10 shows. Needless to say, we're not in the top 10. We might be the longest running. We've been around for almost 20 years. Our 20th anniversary is in April. But that doesn't mean you're number one, and it doesn't mean advertisers. In fact, advertisers, like anybody else, they go, "Oh yeah, I knew about that show, but yeah, we want to get Caller Daddy. Let's get her on. She's hot right now," which means we need to come to you to make up the difference. Even though we have cut back as much as we can, shutting down the studios, canceling shows, laying off some of our most beloved team members, it hasn't been enough to balance the books, if you will. And we're looking at a fairly bleak 2025. I appreciate all of you who are members of Club TWiT. And if you're not, I would love to invite you to join the club. Now, we try to keep it affordable, $7 a month. We try to give you good benefits like ad-free versions of all of our shows, video for shows that are just audio to the public. Of course, our great Club TWiT Discord, the events we do in the Discord. We have Stacy's Book Club is coming up on Thursday. Really good book. The new book from the guys who wrote The Expanse, James S.A. Corey. They have a new book, a new series coming out. The Mercy of the Gods is the first, and it is really good. I just finished it, and I can't wait for the next volume of this. So we'll be talking about that on Thursday. Jason Snell recommended it, and I'm going to desperately try to get Jason to join us for the book club. Micah's Crafting Corner is also coming up this week. Chance to sit down and do some crafts with Micah. I think he's building a tiny kitchen. Last time I checked, we did an AMA last week with Emily Forlini. If you're a member of the club, you can hear the Ask Me Anything on the TWiT Plus feed. So we try to give you extra content, extra stuff to make it worthwhile. But the real reason to join the club is to keep this kind of programming on the air. It isn't very lucrative, but I think it's very important, and we really believe in what we're doing. So we'd like to invite you to help us out. twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks in advance. Let's see. I could talk about COSA. That's just gonna get another big argument going.
I'm only going to talk about the First Amendment again, you know.
I know. How about this one? This was a surprise. You remember there was a little tussle between Matt Mullenweg, CEO and creator of WordPress, CEO of Automatic, with another company that puts people's WordPress sites online called WP Engine. Matt got upset with WP Engine and actually pulled their access to WordPress.org resources, interfered with its plugins. A judge has now ruled that he must stop. On Tuesday, a California district judge ordered Automatic to stop blocking WP Engine's access to WordPress.org. This was kind of a shock. Mullenweg had waged, and this is from The Verge, waged a public campaign against WP Engine in September, accusing them of misusing the WordPress trademark, not contributing back to the WordPress community, and then blocking WP Engine from their servers, plus taking control, in effect, of their plugin, WP Engine's plugin. Judge Araceli Martinez Oguin found merit in WP Engine's claims that Automatic's actions harmed business relationships, saying Mullenweg's conduct is designed to induce breach or disruption. Kind of a shock. I guess I should ask you, Cathy, what you think of this decision. Is it merited?
It's been hard to sort of completely follow, so I put an asterisk, but I think the answer is probably yes. It did seem like it was a measured decision, and the judge seemed to understand what was getting complained about. And it's really a decision that, like, in theory, the Mullenweg view could still prevail, but it's really, I think, sort of an injunction to sort of, one of the points I was making earlier is that the law likes status quo until we're all sure that it's okay to have
That's kind of how it
something
should
happen.
be, right? There's a little speed bump to keep you from changing things. Yeah.
And sometimes we don't like that, because sometimes it's like, go ahead and break things because money will fix it. So we'll sort it out later. But especially for things where money can't fix, or, too much harm will accrue, then the government wants to, like, step back, let's preserve things how they are. And
well,
it looks like
that's what's happened, because this is just maintaining the status quo. There still will be a trial.
Yeah.
There will be discovery. It's WordPress's contention that they're protecting the open source ecosystem in general. That this is often the case, that commercial third parties take advantage of open source without contributing back to the original open source. That was what Matt felt was happening.
Well, it may also be, so one of the things in the standard for a preliminary injunction is generally status quo, and, like, what are the balancing the harms? Are we going to harm more if we change stuff now, or more if we overchange and then turn out that was wrong? And then also likelihood of prevailing on the merits. And this decision does seem to telegraph that the judge found the non-Mullenweg side to be have a persuasive argument, but it isn't fully dispositive. This is not the end of the case. If they want to keep litigating it, the judge might get to a different point eventually, but we've left things as they are for now. But it does seem to, if he was really on board with the argument, he would probably think, yes, there's a harm and we need to stop that harm right now. And it doesn't sound like he was particularly convinced that there was that sort of harm accruing.
We'll watch with interest. Yeah. I think this will develop. And it does really impact the open source community.
Oh, it's just a mess. Like it's hard to, it's unfortunate. This is not who mommy and daddy are fighting, and this is not good.
Yeah.
Sounds like this episode.
No, nobody's a mommy here and nobody's a daddy here. We're just
nobody's
people.
fighting.
We're just
I just sort of like, sometimes you can look at a dispute and you have more of a sense of who the bad guy is, and this and the other thing. And, even if you're not swayed by Mullenweg's actions here, he's been a good guy in the space for a long time.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
That would be unfortunate if this is not consistent with that.
That's exactly my feeling. I've interviewed Matt many times. We've had him on our shows. I have the highest regard for him and his support for open source. So I kind of lean in his favor without really knowing what the case is. I think that a trial is probably the best solution to all of this. Let me talk about an interesting piece in the Atlantic this week by Charlie Wartzel, who I often quote on these shows because he's a very provocative and interesting thinker about technology. He, like me, admits that for years he thought of crypto as really more of a problem than a solution to anything, with NFTs and DAOs and crypto being used, Bitcoin particularly, for ransomware payments. And of course, the world-burning consequence of generating this cryptocurrency. He says, I've read opaque white papers for Web3 startups and decentralized finance protocols, but I've never found a killer app. He says, maybe now after the presidential election, we have found the killer app. And this is the paragraph I'd love to get your comments on, Mike and Emily and Cathy. This is the quote from Charlie Wartzel in The Atlantic. Crypto is a technology whose transformative power is not a particular service, but a culture. A culture. One that is by nature distrustful of institutions and sympathetic to people who want to dismantle them or troll them. The election results were, at least in part, a repudiation of institutional authorities, and crypto helped deliver them. And we know this, that not just Elon Musk, but generally the crypto industry put hundreds of millions of dollars into the election to support crypto-friendly politicians, and they won big time. The new SEC chairman is pro-crypto, replacing Gary Gensler, who wanted to regulate crypto as securities. And the crypto industry didn't like that. They kind of, I've even seen them go so far as to say, there shouldn't be any capital gains tax for money we make in speculating on crypto. And that's the case in some countries. I don't know if it'll be the case here. Trump has said he wants the United States to be the big crypto power. He wants us to have a giant crypto Fort Knox. He
always uses like the most dramatic imagery possible.
Well, actually, I chose the Fort Knox, but okay.
No, he's used it too.
Trump did pledge deregulation to help, quote, ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world.
Take that, El Salvador.
Take that, El Salvador. By the way, people who criticize President Bukele's decision to put the El Salvador currency, and you would know a little bit about this, Mike, I'd like to know what you think, on a crypto basis, his investment in Bitcoin has proven a $400 million windfall for El Salvador. What do you think? Was that the right thing to do?
Well, if he cashes out, I mean, if crypto is supposed to be a currency for buying things, he tried to make that happen. It doesn't really happen in El Salvador. They
still use dollars, don't they?
They use Chivo wallets. They use the U.S. dollar, and but as but it's also investment. So like if you could invest in the stock market or this or that, or you could buy Bitcoin, right? So it's mainly a way to make money. You buy it
as long as it's going up, you make money.
Exactly.
If it doesn't go up, you would lose money. The problem I have with cryptocurrency is it's not tied. The value is not tied to anything. At least with a stock, it's sort of tied to the results of the company, or real estate. It's sort of tied to the market. But in the last
couple of decades, we've sort of accepted the idea that making tons of money for its own sake is an acceptable thing to do. I am a little old-fashioned, and I tend to think that the reason you invest in a company is because that company makes things that people need or want, and it's part of how you contribute to society. It's part of how you make things better. Like I'm a capitalist, and I think that despite so many abuses, capitalism generally has lifted people out of poverty, because you build a company, you can have a small business. All these things are positive, and here it comes along a thing that's it's an investment just like that, in terms of you buy what is the equivalent of a stock and you sell what is the equivalent of stock, but no clothing has been made, no food has been produced or distributed, no benefit to humanity has happened at all. It's just the dude's making money. And I tend to sort of think that we've lost the plot.
Here's the problem. Those dudes who did make a lot of money then invested it in buying the best government money could buy. And the problem with our politics in this country is it's so based on money that they now have immense power.
It's hard to, with that being said, to rain on that parade, but I think they are confusing speculation with investment. And I think, to Mike's point, investment is something that, there's some value in doing it for the sake of what it is that you hope to get a return on your investment, but something is going to get built with that investment. And so there's other reasons to do it. This is just sort of rent seeking, and it's just rent seeking based on how can I turn my $1 into $2. And there's reasons why we have regulation. We may not have enough regulation, but what they keep agitating for is no regulation. So we relearn why we have any regulation in the first point.
We would learn that, wouldn't we?
Because it just is. We're all investing in a lot of tulips.
Yeah, Elon says delete the Consumer Finance Protection Board, the CFPB, because it's just getting in the way. Yeah. It's just getting in the way.
At least when they had
Charlie talked to Molly White, who's been on our show. We love Molly White. She, of course, created the website Web3 is going just great, and covers the cryptocurrency industry. She said Bitcoin, and to some degree the other crypto assets, have this anti-government and anti-censorship ethos. She said, but the original crypto ideology was built around the notion that large financial institutions and the government shouldn't be part of this new paradigm, DeFi, decentralized finance. She says, but many crypto advocates have established a great deal of power through the wealth they've managed to accumulate using these assets. And over the time, there's been a shift from, we don't want these institutions to have the power, to we want the power. And I have to kind of agree with her at this point. Emily, are you all in on Bitcoin?
No, I did an experiment where I invested $1,000 in Bitcoin in 2021. Not Bitcoin specifically, but other coins, because I wanted to track the market and see how it went. And I picked coins that were more environmentally friendly and that enabled
that was your mistake right there.
Exactly. I wasn't greedy enough. And also enabled smart contracts, which I thought was the interesting part about Bitcoin or just crypto, because it's a technology. And what it could do is it could enable kind of like a digital handshake and when you release funds. So maybe when you place the pizza order to Domino's, when the pizza is put in your hands, then the funds are automatically released digitally. So that's like a smart contract. And I was like, that could change the way that we work. That could add something to the country. So I invested in coins that enable that. And I don't think the promise of that has really come to fruition, and it's certainly not entered the dialogue. But I just because of the research I did for that, I got interested in maybe there is a specific technology component here that could be interesting in terms of the rich getting richer, which is what Donald Trump is currently after. I think that narrative is gonna lose steam. I just same old crap, you know.
I mean, the problem is right now there's a lot of people with a lot of money, and everyone's like face pressed up against the glass and wants that too. But
there's a reason Las Vegas always shows ads for the winners, never shows ads for the losers, which far outnumber the winners.
But this is all air. There's no there.
Isn't that what people argued at like the beginning of the stock market, though? Like maybe.
But there would be some equity. Like in theory, you own the teeny bit of the company, and then the company
if you bought
owns
shares
something.
in the British East India Company, you made money. It was a good investment because they were sending ships out and. You know,
I think what's underappreciated or under discussed is there's this ethos and philosophy by advocates of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, but there's not enough discussion because I read a lot about cybersecurity, and the ransomware world wouldn't be what it is today without Bitcoin.
Absolutely
not even close. It's great for money laundering.
Remember in the early days of ransomware, they said,
go
down to 7-Eleven and buy some money cards and mail them to me.
Yeah.
As soon as Bitcoin was in wide use, that transformed.
It's way better for crime and criminals than it is for all the sort of ethical mumbo jumbo that the crypto enthusiasts will spout. And so, you know, I think on balance has had quite a malicious influence. I mean, think of all the healthcare organizations and schools and other institutions that are important to society that have been ground to a halt because of ransomware that's enabled by Bitcoin. Surely that has to be factored in. Yeah, it's nice to have no regulation and no oversight, but there's a dark side to that, clearly.
So the funny thing for me, like as a civil libertarian, I kind of like that there's ways of having currency that may have some built-in privacy protections, but I take your point. Like it is very easy and it's being exploited for that ease. But again, like all these people, it's just air, and the people who are already in crypto make more money when more people come into crypto because the valuation is what the demand is, but there's still no inherent valuation to anything that's owned. So it's kind of a pyramid scheme because they need to get more and more people to come in.
But I bet
if
more people are making money on crypto now, I think people would like it more. I think people just like what benefits them. Right now, corporations and people who, you know, commit crimes are making money on crypto, so they like it, and we're not making money on crypto, so we don't like it.
Well, no one's losing money right now on Bitcoin. Fickle. It's at an all-time high. So
but like the average citizen still hasn't.
You've made some money,
right? Unless you're me and you tried to get environmentally friendly ones.
You bought the wrong coins, obviously.
Right.
I have 7.85 Bitcoins, which I only have because I lost the password to the wallet, because I would have sold it when they were worth $1,000. Yeah. Now they're worth $105,000, and that 7.85 Bitcoin's almost $1 million. I think it will probably get to a lot more. Thank God I couldn't sell it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the only reason I made money.
Emily has me pegged half. Like, yeah, I'm kind of annoyed that I don't have any Bitcoin and, you know, I have some sour grapes.
Exactly.
But I think I am principled enough to say that my bigger concern is that this is air and there's a bubble, and that bubble is going to pop, and it's going to pop disastrously, and for the people who least can afford it. And I think based on all the dynamics and the physics of what is going into this, where it's just speculation based on how much demand they can do, at a certain point, they will run out of demand and it will pop, and that will be bad. And I think So I think the concern is really rooted not purely in the salary.
The trick
rate.
is to get
it's
out
annoying
before that
corporations
happens.
are making money on crypto and we're not. It's annoying that the incoming president is advocating for people who are already incredibly wealthy and have incredible tax advantages to make more money. And that is also part of
No,
this.
but what's annoying to me, though, it's not that somebody else is making money. I don't care if other people make money. I want everybody to make as much money as they can, and I think that's great. What's annoying to me is that nobody cares that this investment is both facilitating crime and providing no material benefit to society. And it would be so much better if people did their investing into companies that were doing something positive, building something, creating something,
like
selling
that.
something,
You're
making
right.
something.
Emily tried. She tried to buy the right
tried.
crypto.
But that's right. Buy something that's going to contribute back to society.
Yes.
Crypto doesn't do that. It's pure speculation.
Well, what I'm more concerned
And it
now
burns
is that
energy.
they want
And
a
it burns
gun
a
for
lot of
the
energy. Yeah.
they want a gun for the regulatory state. So the regulatory state may be good, bad, and otherwise, but it kind of exists to sort of not have bubbles. And if they do pop, they don't pop so disastrously. And so at least like what would be a more constructive investment? Well, invest in a company in a normal way. And they're not happy with the SEC because the SEC is kind of like looking at their stuff and saying like, I think you fall under what we're regulating because you kind of need the regulation here. So they want to do away with the SEC so
They're
they
going
can
to do
have
away with it. They're going
and then we've lost a lot of the protection that protects all of us and helps guide to make sure that we can have sounder investments and that the public can invest more soundly.
So I bet you that the vast majority of our listeners right now have been thinking about getting into Bitcoin, right? They see it's going up. Seems like it's going to go up forever. My wife said I should buy some Bitcoin. They've made it easy because most of the, stock brokerages sell Bitcoin ETFs.
Right.
So it's easy now to buy a fractional Bitcoin and, just cross your fingers that it continues to go up. Charlie writes, crypto's future is uncertain, but its legacy, at least in the short term, seems clearer than it did before November 5th. It turns out cryptocurrencies do have a very concrete use case. They are a technology that has latched onto and then helped build a culture that celebrates greed and speculation as virtues, just as it embraces volatility. The only predictable thing about crypto seems to be its penchant for attracting and enriching a patchwork of individuals with qualities including, but not limited to, an appetite for risk, an overwhelming optimism about the benefits of technology, or a healthy distrust of institutions. In these ways, crypto is a perfect fit for the turbulence and distrust of the 2020s.
And well said. And I think we're going to miss those institutions when they're gone.
Yes, I think you're right.
I would much rather have a strong central financial institution than be what a country and the people that relies on crypto. Like that's a very poor outcome.
Wait a minute. I think this is something where we agree.
What's interesting?
Subject.
What's interesting is
Hey, I liked your opinion on TikTok.
Okay.
I was just like, I have absolutely no problem with what you said. I just am trying to figure out how I square on it. And that's, I don't think I have no ill will towards
you have
on
new
the TikTok
input.
subject.
Yeah.
And I love your championship of the First Amendment, and we need more people like you. And I would say that for sure.
I mean, especially because like I do like regulation in certain ways. I kind of want a role for government. So then the issue is I fight hard for like the civil liberties and like the First Amendment, especially because if you're going to endow the government with a lot of power, that's a lot of power that can be abused. And so one of the fundamental checks on it is to make sure we've got this free avenue and free path to be able to complain about it if it screws up, especially because we're a democracy. So we should be able to discuss how we want to re-steer it. So that's why I hold on so tight for this, because it's the counterbalance for when we need the government to actually be more strong and centralized to do these helping things where we're just not going to be able to sort it out unless we come together to form this more perfect union and promote the general welfare.
I love how we all just need a hug. We didn't hug everyone.
It's a
yes,
love fest
some very smart people 200 plus years ago kind of had that idea.
Right.
Yeah. You're watching This Week in I got to pause. Hold on. You're watching This Week in Tech. Emily Forlini, who has a thought, and we will get to that in just a moment, from PC Magazine. Cathy Gellis, who is our attorney at law and contributor at Tech Dirt, And of course, Mike Elgan of gastronomad.net and his newsletter, machinesociety.ai. It's great to have smart people talking about this stuff. And if smart people all agreed, the world would be a lot easier, but it wouldn't be necessarily a lot better. Thank you for being here. And thank you all for watching. Actually, post-election, there's an interesting article in the New York Times. Among other things, they talked about how the election was really a boon for Silicon Valley. Mark Andreessen, the guy who wrote Netscape Navigator when he was a student at the University of Illinois, the NCSA, is now a venture capitalist and podcaster, I might note. And a big Trump fan, said he has spent about half of the time since Election Day working on the presidential transition. He framed Donald Trump's win as a cultural moment for a techno-optimist ideology. You may remember about 6 months ago, Andreessen publishing his techno-optimist manifesto. We talked about it. He said, "It's morning in America, so I'm very happy. People are finally poking their heads out of the frozen tundra of culture and realizing it's actually okay to build things, hire on merit, celebrate success, and fundamentally be proud of the country and be patriotic."
Woof.
I mean, that sounds good, but everything
really
he's
good. I like
advocated
it.
for following through on that tends to not be that.
Well,
I mean,
let's see. I mean,
Also, it's Rich coming-
Look, I admit I'm anti-Trump. I've been a never Trumper since the day he rode the golden escalator. But maybe I've been wrong all this time. Maybe this is going to be a good time in America where we're going to build and get stronger, and maybe we should celebrate Silicon Valley and the innovation culture.
But let's
that
not
they've
forget
created.
what we already know. So the first thing we know is Donald Trump, the person, doesn't know anything about technology. He calls it the cyber. And every time somebody asks him any question about anything, Bitcoin, AI, whatever, he always says, well, my son Barron is really good with his laptop. And so he personally doesn't, and I have a tendency to think that he's brought in all these Silicon Valley people because they have money, they have an influence, they helped him get elected. I don't think any of the people he's brought on for this transition, like Andreessen, or for future
Mark Pincus of Zynga, David Marcus from
Elon
Meta.
Musk, for crying out loud.
Elon Musk.
That doesn't mean he's going to let them be in charge. I think what it means is that he's a megalomaniacal narcissist, and he's going to sit on Mount Olympus and say, I think I will allow children to get polio. And so it's like, I don't think any of this, he still hasn't decided whether he's going to go with any of this stuff. And there's no reason to believe that he's going to go with any of these people. And certainly doesn't understand anything about AI, crypto, or any of that stuff.
It's ironic because Peter Thiel equated liberalism with the Ancien Regime in France, which of course was overthrown and promptly headed to the guillotine to get their heads chopped off. Ironically, the reason they got their heads chopped up is because they were collecting all of the resources, all of the money, and letting them eat cake. And it seems like maybe Mark has his history, or Peter Thiel, I should say, has his history a little bit upside down.
I mean, if this wasn't our country and our future and our democracy, this might almost be kind of fun to sit back and watch.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't disagree with the characterization of Trump and how he will probably comport himself. But, you know, his little court of people competing for each other, it's not like there's any of them that I'm rooting for. I don't think they have any better insight into that interface between what technology can do and how it interfaces with humanity. They don't seem to actually like humanity very much.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really concerning, like, what would they actually advocate? To a certain extent, Trump might actually temper them because a lot of the stuff is really nihilistic and programs humanity off of the earth to just have this sort of techno-utopia. I'm deeply worried about what they would want to prescribe, and I'm only somewhat happy that they may crash into each other and take each other out before they actually get to do any real damage.
It's interesting timing because we are at a moment, I think perhaps at a moment where AI is going to suddenly change a lot of what's going on in the world. And it coincides with this rise of a techno elite.
I don't know
if that's good or not. I'm not sure what that's going to be. It's going to be uncertain.
it's not good because a lot of this, like AI can do some really cool stuff, but we're not really applying, well, we are in some degree applying it to the cool things, but we're also applying it to a whole bunch of things that are like, this is really bad. It's like, they don't like people. They don't see the value in humanity. They think like the idea of valuing human creation.
President Trump doesn't either, to be honest with you. I think he's always looked down on people.
Yeah. I think it would be a really odd reaction to tour some of like the poorest neighborhoods in America, like people who are really, really struggling and in those terrible places that all these people never go to. I think it would be really odd to go through those places and come out of them and say AI is the answer.
Right.
Or crypto is the answer. That would be a very strange reaction. So I think that a lot of this is such a
the other thing is that they're mutually exclusive things. So there's a lot of talk about Trump ushering in an era of techno-utopian thinking, but at the same time, he wants to put these massive tariffs on other countries and 10% tariff on China. China will retaliate.
60% tariff on 60% China.
It's varied depending on the country. I think
I've been off 20 Oaxaca. I haven't seen the latest percentage.
Yeah.
But the point is that there'll be retaliation that will seriously damage the technology sector, likely. If he
That's what's so weird because Elon Musk is obviously made a good portion of his money out of EVs, but Trump wants to eliminate the EV, and Elon supports this, eliminate the EV tax credit.
It's not clear that any of these people really understand how anything works. They keep arriving at, we have a problem, but they're not understanding the problem. They're not understanding any of the expertise developed from people who've been studying the problem, and therefore they can't fix it. But they're all kind of busting in like Kool-Aid Man, like I'm here and I will provide the thing that everybody has been missing. And
Elon is definitely Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah, I mean, the lack of humility is smart people tend to be kind of humble about what they know. So when you're not seeing the humility, that's kind of like a giveaway that they really don't know what they're talking about, but they don't understand the problem. So therefore they can't fix it, which is why, just add AI seems compelling, because if you don't know anything about anything, making stuff up, why not? So, sounds good.
I mean, I had some hope after the election, just a twinge of, I do think there's a lot of engagement, like deep engagement with issues in the US and in issues with politics. And so there is an underlying sense of like everyone just wants the right thing to happen. And I think that people seem to really, really, really want this country to succeed on both sides. So, I mean, even though all of this is okay, I can't continue.
I wish you did.
By the way, this is from
I've had
Elon's
in weeks.
own X.
There is some hope, though.
Elon
I mean, it's
Musk
easy to get. We just have to figure out like what is the better. And I do think there's just apparently everyone deep in their chest wants things to be better. And I think there's
of course we all do
commonality.
Right. And nobody, I don't think anybody who voted with the intention of hurting the country.
No,
everybody's doing what they think is the best for the country.
But I wish more people knew how more stuff worked, because there's reasons, like some things that we had leading up to everything was, okay, we could have done better, but some things existed for a reason. And to just sort of like, I've written before, and I have a TechDirt post about it. It's Chesterson's rule of fences, where the idea, if you go to a field and nothing is there and you're like, why is this fence here? It's such a waste. And you take out the fence because you haven't seen the tiger hiding in the grass. And now the tiger is free to run around everywhere. And these people are pulling up fences that have been built for a reason, but because they don't know the reason, they're pulling it out. But okay, that's more the Musk and the Trumps and stuff. But a lot of people were like, well, that sounds good to me, because they didn't know they didn't know what fences were there. They didn't know why the fences were there. We had established some systems, and the systems were kind of working, or even to the extent they weren't working, you can't fix them necessarily by just chucking them out.
The thing is, if you pulled up the fence and there's a tiger, it makes a lot of sense to give the tiger $1 million for his inauguration ball so that he'll like you and not eat you. And that's, in fact, what Silicon Valley seems to be doing. $1 million donations for the inaugural from Meta, from Amazon, from Sam Altman, Sundar Pichai, Sergey Brin, Tim Cook, and on and on and on.
But there's the problem of, what does it mean that you have to pay the tiger? And what does it mean when the tiger has planned to hurt other people who are not giving him $1 million?
Well, it's just the self-interest era. That's how I see like all of this Trump stuff. These things used to happen behind closed doors, and now it's cool to pay people to get what you want. And
That's
I just think
such the American way.
yes, now it's on full display. Now that's, to me, I've just seen it so much more in recent months and years. It's all about who's paying who's self-interested in what, and who's just open about it. And that's how the world works. I think that's really wrong.
I didn't even get to all of our AI stories. That's how fun this show was. You're watching This Week in Tech. Emily Forlini, it's great to have you here. PC Magazine, you cover a whole lot of stuff on PC Magazine. What are you working on right now?
Well, I write about EVs. I write about AI.
What should I buy for my next EV? What do you think?
I've advised a lot of people on this, and that I really love doing that. It's so fun to put people in EVs. So if you want to seriously,
I should tell you, I have owned a Tesla, a Mini Cooper. These are all EVs. A Mustang Mach-E EV. I have owned a Chevy Bolt EV. I currently am on a BMW i5 EV.
Okay.
So
I thought this
I've
wasn't
tried
a
them all
lucrative
now.
podcast. I
I've
thought we
tried them
weren't
all.
making money here. Because
Should I get a Lucid? Should I get the Lucid Pure? Have you driven that yet?
I don't think that's worth it, to be honest.
It's
a very
expensive.
It's expensive car. It has over 500 miles.
How about a
range,
Chevy Equinox? I'm seeing that looks like a pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. I tested that one a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, okay. What should I get?
My goodness, you've tried everything. I don't know. You've done all the greatest hits.
You know what? I love them all, to be honest with you. Each of them have their own. But once this is, by the way, this seems to be held out by statistics. Once you've bought an EV and driven an EV, you very rarely go back to a gas vehicle.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, I like
really
the
fun
Porsche
to drive.
Taycan. That's what I would get.
Thank you. Just tell my wife that, would you?
I will. I think that's
Leo needs a
definitely
Taycan.
the sexiest and coolest EV.
It is pretty cool. Range ain't great, but you know, it's still, who cares, right?
Right.
Also with us, Mike Elgan, who is in Oaxaca, but you're not going to be there long. Where are you going next?
We're going to El Salvador on January 1st, and in the interim, I'm going to
bring
be in
your
California with
Bitcoin.
myself. Yes, but I'm drinking some nice mezcal. I'm actually drinking Gastronomad brand mezcal.
I have a bottle of that.
Yes, you do.
Oh,
you still
it's so
have it?
good.
You haven't
I still have
finished
it. Mezcal.
I know it's. Yeah,
I don't really drink, Mike. So
I know you don't.
I have to work my way up to mezcal. Let's put it that
anyway.
way.
It's lovely. We don't sell this, by the way. This isn't an ad. We only give this to our
That's
guests.
why I'm keeping it. I'm not going to
Can't
drink
buy
it.
it.
I'm going to save it. It's like my Beanie Babies. It's going to be my retirement.
But whenever I come on TWiT, you always let me talk about Gastronomad and also my son's startup.
Hello, Chatterbox.
But because it's the holidays,
yes.
I like to say that both of these things are great gifts. And if you want to be a hero to your significant other, Gastronomad, and if you have anybody who's 8 years old and up and wants a totally secure AI device, I would recommend Chatterbox. And I talked to Kevin before the show, and he said that if anybody places an order before the 18th, he can fill it by Christmas. So,
oh my God!
gift.
So you could buy now and have it by Christmas. What a gift this would be for a smart, I'd say 5th grader to 8th grader, something like that.
Even an adult, so many people, including on this show, complain about surveillance capitalism, exemplified perfectly by Amazon and its Echo device, just harvesting information. They have an Echo device for kids that's very inexpensive because they want to monetize that kid to the end of time.
Jeez.
Whereas the Chatterbox is the only, it's so private, it's the only smart speaker allowed in schools, and it's super private for any adult who wants to have access to AI, who wants to tinker a bit with building their own system. It references Wolfram Alpha, ChatGPT, etc., but it's totally private when all users are completely anonymous on the system and cannot be tracked. So for a gift, I think this is perfect. I
agree.
It's cool.
I agree. It's very cool. HelloChatterbox.com for your Chatterbox and a little mezcal to go along with it.
That's right.
Cathy Gellis, I don't think I'm speaking out of school because you've written about it on Tech Dirt. You recently had a little health scare.
Yeah. For people who've seen me over the year, in the beginning of March, I got diagnosed with cancer. And so I've been dealing with that. And I wrote about it because I realized it was I wanted to get something out of it. Like, what a stupid waste. There needs to be, there got to be some way to make
cancer,
lemonade
and all
out
I
of
got was
these.
this lousy T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wanted to write about it partly because I wanted value. And so I wrote it about in a couple contexts. One is that around the time that I was diagnosed, Princess Kate had also announced that she'd had her cancer. And not that I'm enamored with the British royalty or whatever follow that, it was really helpful because that moment when I'm sort of like just drowning in the reality of it, but I need to tell people, and this is a really hard conversation to have because I have to get my own head around it, and I'm going to traumatize the people who care about me by telling them. It was just really nice to be able to start the argument I'm a lawyer. Everything's an argument. It was really good to start the conversation with, I have a Princess Kate problem. Yeah, and that opened the door, and then I could follow it up with details. And then I also wanted to write about it because my cancer was ovarian cancer. So it's a gynecological cancer. And I thought it was really important. I'm sorry?
My grandma had that.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of the reasons she died, yeah.
Yeah, I thought ovarian cancer was a death sentence. Obviously, I'm still here. It's virulent. It still doesn't have good rates, but my understanding of basically where I was is about a third of the people who get diagnosed would not survive it, and they get erased. And then of the other 2/3 that are left, for half, you're okay and the end, and you move on with your life. And for the other half, it can come back, and then you have to keep fighting it. But it's a lot more fightable than it used to be. And I did really well, kind of hard, et cetera, knock on all the wood. I didn't have too miserable time with the therapy, and at the moment, I'm no evidence of disease. So then it's just a question of,
that's wonderful.
Is it going to come back?
Congratulations.
So, but I also want to write it because it's gynecological, and boy, an awful lot of gynecological issues have really been brought to the fore, and I wanted to write about it in the context of personal liberty and the reproductive freedom that I had, which gave me access to professionals, which is how I happen to have found it. And
you were going in for IVF.
I was going to try to do IVF, and we were doing a procedure, and the procedure did not work. And this turned out to be why, but that's how they found the masses.
Wow.
So, but how good that I was able to have access to that reproductive technology and the caregivers, and then also that the caregivers can understand these parts and the science behind these parts, and also come up with cures and remedies and things like that. And we are busy criminalizing the science. Right. So the liberty is getting taken away, and the science is getting taken away, and the science will get taken away, not just from women, but it's such an anti-science attitude with the idea that we could understand our parts and provide curative science to understand how they can work better. That's going to roll towards everybody in any sort of condition that any human body can have. And, it's the stuff that I write about there on Tech Dirt, personal liberty and innovation. And I thought my experience just brought those situations to the fore, and trying to get something out of that. It's much easier to be public about it than try to keep my secret. I mean, after all, the hair thing kind of gives it away anyway. Can there be some value out of it? Can we reframe some of these issues? And so that when people make policy decisions that may seem convenient to them for whatever reason, they can understand that there's greater impacts that can happen down the road.
Good for you. Women's health is just so woefully underexplored and underappreciated and disconnected from science and technology, and for some reason considered in a different sphere than any other kind of medicine. And I think it's just a tragedy, and it's amazing that you wrote about that, how brave and smart. So thank you.
And it was a wonderful article, and we do need a lot more science, and days look dark ahead for science about women's health and all kinds of things. But it's also has to be said, because there's tech podcast that we talk a lot about all the risks and dangers of AI, but one of the great things about AI will be its powers of diagnostics. And so anybody with any sort of disease or anything that could be better diagnosed with AI, hang on, because over the next few years, there's going to be a revolution in AI-based diagnostics, and this is a good thing that we should be celebrating.
We're already seeing it. This is one of the stories I had. AI is detecting more breast cancer cases. Women who chose, and by the way, you had to pay extra for it, AI-powered mammograms were 21% more likely to have cancer detected than those who didn't. This is from a finding presented at the annual meeting of the Radiological Society of North America. So we've heard before that AI being used in radiology. I have friends who are radiologists, not to replace the radiologist, but to help the radiologist. And I think that's already in widespread use and very powerful. And they also use, by the way, AI for dictation, because it turns out it's very good at...
no, it isn't.
No?
No, it is not. So there have been multiple studies I wrote about this in Machine Society where where pretty much every single package of dictation that they analyzed had some hallucination or another, including some whoppers. In some cases, and a lot of this, the leading brand is based on ChatGPT, but they're even making up medicines. They're saying, they're helped by
sure.
it, and they're just created.
Well, that's why the human needs to
this,
stay in the loop.
Yeah, but I saw the same thing about diagnostics. I wrote that there was a good quality study that gave AI diagnostic tools to a bunch of people who work in the field, and it didn't help them. So I think there's in the best case scenario, yes, it works well, but without training, proper technology, proper usage, it doesn't help with diagnosis in the field.
And but where the excitement is in the experimental phase, where in case of Parkinson's disease, they're showing promise and the potential to detect Parkinson's disease 10 years before the first discernible,
which is amazing. But I would love to have more faith in the healthcare system. I mean, we didn't even get to Mr. Luigi, but it's been.
Having it as a tool to augment the people, if it's a tool that people can use and it is carefully tailored to the problem that it's trying to solve, I think that's where the really interesting things with stuff like AI is. The problem is, I think, when it tries to replace the human beings and presume at this point in its development that it can do better, I think then we run into problems because we just sort of abandon our own.
We've learned that, haven't we, with self-driving vehicles? Don't let the car do all the work. Get some assistance from the AI, but honestly, you still need to keep your hands on the wheel.
When I had the Equinox that we were just talking about, and I had a Mach E2 in the same week, and both of them had the hands-free self-driving, so level 2. And I felt like I was becoming a worse driver. I was having.
I know for sure.
Trouble.
Don't you notice that already with GPS maps? You don't know how to find your way anywhere.
Right. So then I worry with this case, if we give AI to radiologists, are they just going to be kind of default to it and actually lose a little bit of critical thinking? So it's all in the implementation.
Here's another story. Huge randomized trial of AI boosts discovery, at least for good scientists. That's interesting. This is from Nature. This is the use of AI in research. And it showed, and maybe Mike, you should speak to this, since this is kind of what Machine Society is all about. But they followed the deployment of a machine learning tool at an unnamed corporate laboratory with 1,000 researchers. Teams that were assigned, and it was by random, to use the tool discovered 44% more new materials and filed 39% more patent applications than the ones that didn't use the AI.
And this totally checks out with our own experience with AI, doesn't it? I mean, it can certainly accelerate in the case of the 39% increase in patent applications. It accelerates the grunt work, no matter what kind of grunt work you're doing in most cases, for example, software development or writing. And it also has a more open mind than a human being generally has. If you can think of 5 reasons for XYZ and you put those into a good AI and say, are there any other reasons? It'll come up with other good reasons where you can go, and then you can move on, and it's very quickly you can sort of expand the scope of your thinking and expand the number of things you're considering. So that totally checks out. And also, we can expect AI to keep evolving and getting better and better. So, do
you believe we'll get to AGI anytime in our lifetime, Mike?
I don't think so. I think that's. I think it's a bit of a delusion that
it's a pipe dream.
Yeah, and I think what we'll discover is that the human mind is vastly more capable and amazing than we ever thought.
But not to diminish the value of AI in conjunction with a human mind.
No, right, but we're not appreciating we're approaching the policy problem of, are we appreciating AI? And I think the policy problem is we're not appreciating the human beings. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things with AGI is, one of the problems we have right now is we keep acting as though we've achieved it. And taking out the people and just replacing it with the technology as if that were an equivalent.
Not there yet.
We're not there yet, and you're not going to get that results. But it's really, I think we also suffer in general from the lack of appreciation of the people and how cool people's brains actually are and all the interesting things they can do.
And one of the things I think that's cool about the human brains is that I think we actually deep down really do care where stuff comes from. For example, there have been articles that say that, AI is better at writing poetry, but the knowledge that a human being didn't feel these things makes a huge difference. And for people who read poetry, they're not in. They just don't want good words. They want to share the experience of another person.
I noticed this in chess, and when I played chess quite seriously in my youth, and machines got better and better. Pretty soon, you couldn't beat a machine. Pretty soon, machines were better than humans, and now machines can solve positions much better than humans. In fact, probably would easily be the world champion. But that doesn't mean we want to watch AIs play chess. We want to watch humans play chess. And Benito, welcome back, by the way, Benito Gonzalez, our producer.
Hi.
Came back from the Philippines and Japan. I thought we'd never get him back. Good to see you, Benito. But he's always said, and I believe this more and more, Benito, that really we write poetry, we play chess, we make music because we enjoy the process, that is part of what it is to be human. And ceding these creative tasks to a machine doesn't solve or satisfy any need. And so it's, there'll always be humans who want to write poetry or play chess or make music. And we will always, as humans, I suspect, prefer the output of those. Now, there are places music is used, as in elevators and on podcasts, where AI, generated music is probably okay. It's music. But that's not the music we love, the artists we go to see. Last week, Christina Warren was on. We had to let her go a little early because she was going to the very last Eras concert by Taylor Swift. I cannot imagine any future where anybody would say, I can't wait to see the last performance of Machine Swift performing its latest
Why would you ever
tunes.
have a last one? The whole point is that you could just keep going and going and going.
You got to create false scarcity. GM has called it quits on their Robotaxi. Cruise is dead. Mari Barra, who's the CEO of GM, this is her $50 billion Robotaxi dream. Lots of people put money into these cruise taxis. Its business basically disappeared after it dragged a pedestrian, and then GM lied about it.
I worry as a cyclist. Like, I don't like self-driving taxis because I need to make eye contact, and there's nothing to make eye contact with.
Yeah, you do. You look at this
headlights.
person to see if they've seen you. And if
sharing the road is a communicative experience, and there's nothing to communicate with where it's going to affect behavior. So
yeah,
this was big. I listened to the earnings call for this, and Mary Barra just kept saying, like, "Oh, it's not our core business. We're going to focus on passenger," what we just talked about, the Equinox level 2 self-driving system.
Right.
So that's
which
what
I
they
like
said
a
they're
lot.
gonna do.
Yeah.
And that's a noble mission too. I guess they're just getting out of the commercial, like a B2B kind of thing. So it's just going to be like passenger tech we could experience and kind of operate, quote unquote, ourselves.
One of the things Elon Musk is pressing for is an elimination of regulation around self-driving vehicles.
Yeah.
He says, we can't really get good at this unless you let us do whatever we want.
Right.
I saw a video today that a McLaren was speeding and got in a car crash that was so bad that the car split in two.
Oh, dear.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, they say that self-driving can solve, all these car crashes and things, but there's got to be some way that the type of person who would be speeding down the highway at 150 miles per hour in a $200,000 car can abuse that. There's got to be some way that person in a self-driving car could also abuse it. Like, I don't feel like we can get rid of it. I don't know if I'm being
I don't know. My
cynical.
BMW will not let me drive fast down the highway.
But then they'll just do something else.
No.
Like
They'll do something else. Like, what is it going to
brew
be?
meth in the back seat while the car is driving.
There you go. By the way, this does not mean Google's abandoning Waymo. It's of course, I think Barra implied that, look, we are not have the market cap of a Google or of an Alphabet.
Well, talk about not the core business. It's weird that the car company is the one that's not doing the car thing,
Isn't
and
that
the
funny?
computer company is the one that's doing the car thing.
Right.
Honda was a big investor. Microsoft, Walmart, T. Rowe Price, SoftBank all put money into the GM effort. Barra says that they're going to pay them all back, but it's over for Cruise.
I feel like Cruise got, they definitely messed up with the lying and the crash that they had, but it's not like Waymo hasn't had issues. Like Tesla's, a lot of them have been involved in killing people, and they're still teasing that out in court. So I feel like GM got a little bit of harsh shutdown here, but
Is it a big deal, Emily, that you can now buy a car on Amazon?
yes. Actually, I have personal experience with this. Like when I started at Amazon and I used to work there, this was considered the holy grail of products they were trying to get on Amazon. So this was in like 2015, and it was considered, they were working on it back then, and I was exposed to that effort and in meetings about it, and no car company would do it. So when I saw that Hyundai is doing this, I was like, wow, they did it. So I had a personal experience.
Car dealers in America are incredibly powerful. I was not able, in some states, you cannot buy a Tesla direct from Tesla because the laws of the state say you have to have a dealership in the state. I think Texas is one of those states. I had a great experience buying a Tesla in California directly from Tesla. I didn't have to go through a dealer. And for a lot of people, the idea of not going through the negotiations with a salesperson at a dealership is very appealing.
This was one of the things. I think Musk was very vocal when Tesla was first coming out about this is nonsense.
They were very frustrated. Yes.
And I think I viewed him as meritorious in those views.
Right.
But
this is big for Amazon internally because Amazon makes a percentage of the sale price. So this is a massive ticket item.
As of now, you still have to go through a Hyundai dealer, though, don't you, to go get the car, or no?
I haven't looked into that, but that when I was there, that was why they wanted to get cars onto Amazon.
Wired says customers can hop onto Amazon Autos and search for the Hyundai make and model they want, then find dealers at vehicles in a nearby dealership. Right. Shoppers can select trim, color, interior features, get a valuation of their current vehicle, but the checkout
that must be how they worked it out. But I mean, companies to list a product on Amazon, you do cede some percentage of the sale. So there's no way that Amazon's not either doing that now or working towards that.
But you still get Amazon reviews, you get star ratings, you probably even get an Amazon pick.
That's why Amazon has sellers pay. It's called quote unquote marketing. So if you're listing a product, you're paying Amazon. So that's how it works.
It also has to be said that you can buy a house on Amazon. So there,
can you?
There are hundreds of different brands. And I'm looking at one right now, and they'll deliver it by December 19th.
That's not weird if you consider that in the 1800s you could buy a house by catalog.
Yeah.
The barn that's on that they had to move on the Apple campus when they built the big donut thing. That was a Sears and Roebuck type kit.
Mm-hmm. Here's a 40-foot luxury house, 3-bedroom, one living room, one fully equipped bathroom and kitchen, prefabricated container house for adults living. It's foldable. It's only $16,000. Free delivery by January 9th.
Bad reviews, honestly. 3.3.
Yeah.
That's a good... Oh, bad reviews. See, you're smart.
Well,
when you worked at Amazon, what division did you work in?
I worked in 3 separate teams and almost 6 years, but when I was exposed to this was my very first team, which was like Amazon.com retail. So
why did you leave and become a journalist?
I don't know. They did it to its full extent, and I wanted to try something else. And
Smart.
I do have a
You came over to the light side of the
purpose-driven
force.
bone in my body, and I didn't want to go my whole life without exploring that.
Most of the reviews, Mike, are not people who bought it. They're just
Right.
people looking at the floor plan or
It's not sweeping the nation. It's not a choice for homeowners.
seems
You could
good.
probably buy something that would sweep the nation on Amazon. Like
Clean design,
a
no
Roomba.
closets.
Yeah.
Maybe we could list TikTok on Amazon.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, let's
exactly.
sell TikTok on Amazon. You
It'll
solved
sweep the nation,
problem.
apparently.
And this show has gone full circle. Emily, we have so much more we could talk about with all 3 of you. You guys are great. By the way, if you needed that house before Christmas, you could send a gift card for it. And I imagine for that Hyundai Ioniq as well, so wouldn't that be a nice thing under the tree?
That'd be nice.
You've got
Nice
a
for
new
Amazon if you
car.
Nice for Amazon if you lost the card. So
So many other stories I would have loved to talk about, but we've run out of time. Mike Elgan, have a wonderful evening in Oaxaca. I imagine it'll involve mezcal and some of those delicious. What are those sandwiches they make them on that grill?
it's called a tlayuda.
Tlayudas.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
man.
fantastic.
Delicious.
Yeah,
I could live on tlayudas.
Me too. Me too. I love
so
them.
good.
Yeah.
So good. I hope you ate dinner before the show.
No, I didn't. We're gonna
Oh.
go grab a bite right after the show. So
Yeah, we
I'm
gotta
so
go
jealous.
eat. Release
Give my
us.
love to Amira, and thank
will.
you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Emily, you're the best. We love having you on, and I'm sorry to starve you in New Jersey, where it is already after 8:00 in the evening. Oh my God, what's for dinner?
I think my husband's downstairs making polenta. I can smell.
He's a nice Italian boy. I love
exactly,
it.
exactly.
Gotta make it the polenta.
Yeah.
Put a
But
little
I upped it.
marinara.
I brought some wine this time. Last time I was on, we got to the end of the show and
Smart.
everyone was drinking besides me, but nobody talked about how they were drinking. So I was
Oh
like,
yeah, it's definitely covert.
this time
Yes.
I'm gonna.
It's covert.
I'm
Mike's
just gonna
got the
bring-
mezcal. You
Yeah.
looks like you have a nice white. I'm drinking
have-
coffee, which is probably a mistake.
I have
I didn't get-
seltzer.
And we know
There you
what
go.
Cathy's drinking. Oh, look, a Petaluma Hills mug. Is that where you put your Gatorade in?
No, but I did a bike ride.
Oh,
this
nice.
was the souvenir glass from the bike
Sonoma
ride.
County Challenge. Wow, that's neat.
Yes.
Thank
And
you,
it's
Cathy
seltzer,
Gellis.
so.
Tech
But I
Dirt.
could say I sound more interesting if I say, oh, yes, it's mezcal.
Just say it's vodka. It's vodka.
Okay.
Drinking vodka.
Yeah.
CGCouncil.com. She's Cathy Gellis on Blue Sky. You said no more Mastodon. You want to promote Blue Sky.
Well, not no Mastodon forever, but I'm clearly very invested in my Blue Sky experience, and I may migrate Mastodon servers anyway. So for now, we'll go flip it to Blue Sky because I'm definitely there.
Slip it to Blue Sky, baby. Emily,
yeah, I
are you a
should-
Blue Sky, a Mastodon, an X? What are you?
I should say that people can find me, follow me at PC Mag, and then I'm on Blue Sky. I'm still on X. I'm trying to figure out my relationship to it at this point. I'm on TikTok.
Are you still have Dry Belbus, or did you move everything to Forlini?
I moved to Forlini. I'm trying not to confuse people.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Yes, I just submitted my passport for renewal yesterday, which was a big milestone. It's all right though. I think people talk about it being like really, really terrible, but it's just bureaucracy. You get through it.
Yeah, bureaucracy.
We're talking about changing my last name because I got married, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
We have lots of mazel tovs to go around here today. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. Great, really great, provocative and interesting show. Thank you, Emily and Mike and Cathy. We'll see you soon. We thank all of you for joining us. We do TWiT every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 2200 UTC. I mentioned that because you can watch us live. We stream the show, and most of the shows we do, we stream them live in Discord, of course, for our club members, but also on YouTube, Twitch. We do it on Facebook and LinkedIn, X.com, and TikTok. Yes, we're on TikTok, at least until January 19th, and Kick. So there's 8 different ways you can watch live. But of course, most people watch after the fact. It's a podcast after all. You can download copies of the show, whether it's audio or video, from our website, twit.tv. When you get there, you'll also see a link to a YouTube channel, which has the video. Great way to share clips. If you wanted to share a clip of, our discussion about TikTok with a friend, that would be a great way to promote our show and to show your intelligence. And of course, you can always subscribe to the show in any podcast client, Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, all of the above. Just search for TWiT. You know why? I think at this point, we must be one of, if not the longest running podcasts in the world, nearing 20 years, over 1,000 episodes, 1,010 episodes. Thank you all for your support. Thanks to our Club TWiT members. Your support makes a huge difference. And I will see you all next week for a very special year-end episode. We'll look back at 2024 with some of our favorite people, and then, of course, our best of. So this is the last normal TWiT for the year. Happy New Year. Have happy holidays. As I have said for nearly 20 years, thanks for joining us. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye.
Amazing.